You play to win the game. You don't play to just play it.
And the Pittsburgh Steelers become the first franchise in history to win 6 Super Bowls.
Playoffs? Don't talk about playoffs. You kidding me? Playoffs? I just hope we can win a game.
Touchdown! Kansas City! Damian Williams!
Forward, diving to the goal line! A touchdown! And a title for the Patriots!
Well, you think having a 37-year-old
We made it. For everything that was said about this upcoming NFL season, all the debates as to whether or not it was going to happen, how long it was going to go, we are finally to the point where we finished all 200 plus. I actually don't even remember how many games they played during the regular season, but we got all the way through it, and now we finally get to talk about some playoff football, which I love football no matter what, but playoff football just sounds a little bit different. And now ESPN is reminding us that it's even more important because we are getting ready for Super Wildcard Weekend. Thank you guys for tuning in to NFL UnHinged. This is the first playoff episode of any of the network exclusive shows. And we're really happy for you to join us Saturday or Sunday because we're going to be releasing this on both days. Remember, you can catch this show every single week for the next 2 weeks on Saturday and Sunday. And then once championship and Super Bowl comes around, it'll be more just Sunday when there's only games on one day. Every week. Wow. Take a week off and see what happens. But every week, 10 a.m. Eastern on the Unhinged Sports Network. It's also available on the Far End of the Bench YouTube page. It's been a fun season, and now we get into the real deal. I'm going to introduce everybody in ascending order of how they finished in the pick'em. So that brings us to Kelsey of the High Low Sports Podcast, coming in last place. I'll say fourth because we have a tie for second. You had a 9-7 Week 17 record. You were 72-39 overall, and that gave you a 65% winning percentage. I'm glad to be back, especially for this moment. But how are you feeling this week?
I've been spending the week studying. First of all, secondly, there's no regrets. I went out hot. I went out on my guns blazing. I had to make some crazy picks to try to get higher up in the rankings, and I did my crazy picks, and, well, they let me down. Those fucking Eagles. Yeah, I don't even want to get started on that, but that Eagles pick, it was working until Doug Peterson got involved. That's all I got to say.
We'll talk plenty about the Philadelphia situation because I'm sure we have a lot of different opinions about that. So it was a valiant effort. You and Jim were the only ones to pick every single week that the show has been on. So I will say that the more picks you had, the more likely you were to fall off, unless you're DJ, because every single week that he had more picks, he just decided to continue to go. We'll bring him up later. We don't have. You
guys are lucky you didn't have to make a podcast with that guy every week. He's riding a hot streak. It's miserable.
I am sure about that. I told Nico today I texted him his stats, and I was like, DJ's just damn Rain Man at this point. And I feel like whatever he says is what's going to happen. So I want him to say the Bengals are going to go 18-0 next year and then have a chance to play in the Super Bowl and break the playoff streak. But moving forward, we have the esteemed commish of the Unhinged Sports Network, J-Dash from the J-Dash Show, Jim Renee. He had a 12-4 Week 17. He's finished the season 73-34 overall for a 68% winning percentage. Jim, you were in first for quite a bit of this show, had a couple bad weeks, took a couple flyer picks, but how are you feeling moving into the playoffs?
It's postseason. That's the only thing that matters at this point. And I have to remind everyone. Gotta get my Joe Biden. I gotta remind everyone, Americans, I have the most wins and unhinged. Who cares about the losses? I have the most wins. We can stop the count. I get the most wins. That's the only thing that matters.
Oh boy, the heel of the Unhinged Sports Network and the commissioner, J-Dash, coming in hot. We'll mention our tie now. I'll go with my co-host first from the Far End of the Bench podcast, Nico. You had a 14-2 record. You actually tied with DJ for the best record of the week, and you finished 67-30 overall for a 69% winning percentage. I think that you're most happy that you don't have to take the Wonderlic, or when we thought we were going to sign up for the ACT again, you're not going to have to take that test with me, but
I'm gonna be
feeling
honest.
after-
I knew I wasn't gonna take it because I had faith in myself, unlike everyone else here. I knew I would be top 2 for a reason. Me and Zach tied, and if I had one more week under me, I probably would have been second. I'm not saying I would have been first because DJ just killed all of us, so that wouldn't have been mattered. I think I would have solidified second if I had the first week, but I'm not surprised at all. I've done a really good job with all of it. I mean, I had the best week. I only had one. I mean, I've only had weeks. I think I'm the only person with weeks of only 2 losses or 1 loss. Yeah, I think I had 1 loss 1 week. It was the Jets loss. But I've been killing it. And if I had another week, I probably would have had second by myself. But sitting at 69%, I can't hate that.
Also sitting at 69% from the Gridiron Gallery podcast and the Beyond the Press Box. Wow. I'm doing way too many of these shows. Zach Kyleman, you're also tied for second with a 69% winning percentage. You had a 12-4 week, just like Jim, for week 17, and finished 65-29 overall. So respectable. And you are one of the bigger football guys on the show. So how are you feeling after your regular season performance?
Well, I'm a little upset at myself. I took some risks, a risk last week that I thought was more calculated based on an earlier season result. The New York Jets were on a 2-game winning streak, as well as they lost by 3 to the New England Patriots before this second matchup. They were actually leading at 1 point, 14-0 on the Patriots. And then the Pats had the second half handed to them themselves, took it easily from the Jets. Sometimes you got to take risks. That time, not so calculated. Thought I could maybe just slide by because I was still trailing by fractions of a percentage last week on DJ. Now I'm down by 2% to end the season, but it's okay. Second place is second place. I will gladly take that.
We'll have to make a second place t-shirt, and you and Nico can split it and figure out how that's going to work.
Can we just get a really big second place t-shirt so they both have to stick their arms on one side and their head through the middle?
We'll share it the day we meet up. We'll do one of those like twin shirts or something.
There you go.
Fine by me, but DJ has to be, or Kelsey has to be a DJ's little henchman then.
I'm already DJ's little henchman. What are we talking about here? I do all the dirty work. What are you talking about?
That's got to be hell.
It's miserable, man. Try it. Don't suggest it.
Speaking of DJ, he did finish the regular season with the best record. He had a 14-2 week 17, or not record, I guess, but winning percentage. He was 70-28 overall, which if you remember back to the first couple times he was on the show, he was actually sitting right around 500 and maybe even a little bit under. He decided to wake up. I guess when we put stipulations on whether or not you were going to win, he definitely took that to heart. It's unfortunate that I have to take the test with you, Kelsey, but from the High Low Sports Podcast, you guys got the first and worst. So, it's good and bad, right?
Hey, it's right there in the name. I mean, talk about hitting the nail on the head right there, man. Come on.
If you're not first, you're last.
We do what we do best.
Gotta love puns.
I was pretty upset with myself that I didn't come up with that one. The High Low Sports Podcast was the high and low of the regular season NFL UnHinged pick'em. But now we're going to get into this episode. We'll have our first playoff pick'em. We'll get to that a little bit later. We do have some topics that we wanted to discuss, but guys, we made it through relatively unscathed. There were some hiccups along the way. We talked about them as it went along, but now that we've seen the entire regular season play out, did it meet your expectations? Did it fall short? I'll start with Zach. What did you think of the season overall as it pertains to the COVID situation and getting through the regular season?
Surprised, but in a good way. There were definitely some faults along the way. We have, of course, criticized or have defended certain actions of the league itself, but the league always ends up making mistakes during a season anyway. So it was expected probably at some point they were going to screw up. But if we're talking just competitive nature and just the surprises of how the season turned out, especially the run to the playoffs, which I cannot remember a playoff run like this where we're talking the AFC at the back half of the season. And credit, they're adding another 7th seed this year. That many teams that could have finished 11-5 to end the year. And one of them, even with an extra seed, could have missed if the Dolphins would have beat the Bills somehow this past week. I was impressed overall. The season is, as much as it wasn't a bubble and everyone was freaking out about the bubble, the NFL did as good a job as you could imagine with the circumstances they were trying to play in. So with the stuff they were given and what they chose to do, I'm overall fine with it. There were some games or some contests and handlings of teams. We can go to the Broncos, mind you, as me and Nico have famously debated on this show. that were either mishandled or not correctly handled by the right entity in the league. But overall, was really impressed with the league this year. And I think this has been a fun league year overall. I think we're going to have a blast with this super wild card weekend that we're going to be going into. So give me, if I'm giving a letter grade, give me like a B+. It wasn't perfect, but I would say it was decently good.
I would think that Roger Goodell knows how much he's hated, and he would take anything higher than an F that most people would give him. So that I agree with some of the points that you've made, Nico. We mentioned the Broncos, so I know that you have a little bit of gripe there, but other than that, how do you think the season finished out in a regular season sense?
In comparison to the other three leagues that are known as the tops or as the top sports in America, with hockey, basketball, baseball, and football, it's third because of what hockey and basketball were able to do. But that's not saying it was a bad thing at all. Baseball obviously did the worst. They had a positive test during the last game of the World Series. I mean, it's yet, knock on wood, hopefully that doesn't happen with the Super Bowl or anything happens during the playoffs with that. But I'm very, very happy to see how the NFL has been able to control everything. They kind of were shooting themselves in their own foot by not adding a week 18, and some of those teams that really got screwed over, they could have easily done that. Maybe that's something we see next year if everything doesn't get back to normal by this time next year. So that's something to look out for. But I'm very happy with how it went. It's just, it is what it is. We got to take what we can out of this pandemic, and the NFL is putting on games, and slowly people are getting to games, and that's exactly what we all want. And that's because one of the best healing things in the world is sports, and it's a great thing to have a full season get through. I never had a doubt that it would have ended. I had no doubt that would have ended. Maybe it would have stopped for a week, but I had no doubt that the season was not going to end because the NFL is very persistent.
Kelsey and Jim, I got a different question for you guys. What was your biggest surprise? I'll start with Jim. What was the biggest surprise of the season that you didn't expect coming in, and you either liked or hated it? But what was your biggest takeaway from what we witnessed throughout this regular season?
The biggest surprise to me of the season is that we got to this point. That's for me. I think if we did it like a show before everything, we could have said that. How many weeks do you think we got in the season before they cancel it because of the outbreaks? And a lot of us, I guarantee you, if we did a show then, we'll have said about 12 to 14 weeks. But they got to this point. And luckily, what surprised me is that there's no major outbreaks. Everyone's pretty healthy, but one of the most to put the act on the field, to see the players. The most surprising thing to me for team wise is the Buffalo Bills, and I hate to say it, the Los Angeles Chargers. They were surprised at the end of the year. They did the old fashioned San Diego, LA Charger tradition. Fall way back early in the season, and the final 6 weeks of the year they start running off games to almost make the playoffs. They missed it. But you saw the old school Chargers. Nico knows what I'm talking about. Freaking Chargers be 6 games out of the wild card, and look, they made the playoffs. How the fuck did they
still lose in the first round of playoffs?
Exactly.
I don't concern myself with the opinions of sheep in the Chargers. They can be the wild card team, but they'll never do anything in playoffs.
But besides from that, it's not really a surprise to me. I could mention those, but I take back 2018, the 2020 season, and I look at Alex Smith, and that's one thing I gotta say about 2020 for me. He's inspiration. He's the good story, and for me, that's the bright spot of 2020. If this was a normal season, of course it'd be different things, but also there will be a week 18 next year, Nico, because next year is when they go to 17 game seasons. Or 17-game season.
Yeah, I saw rumors going around that that's actually closer to being approved than what we originally thought. Kelsey, surprises from the season. What'd you think overall that we've made it to this point? We're getting ready for the super wild card weekend.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly think the most surprising thing is that the NFL only really messed up one time, really, with COVID procedures, and that's with Denver. I think beyond that, they did pretty well. I mean, considering everything they could have done wrong, in this season. I think, getting all the games played and getting it played within week 17, they did a great job of that. I mean, at one point in time, we had football on every single day of the week during the season. So, NFL finally accomplished their goal of taking over the weekly schedule. But I think, just talking about the league as a whole, that's probably the most fascinating thing is they only messed up really one big time. And then beyond that, like looking at performances, Jim hits the nail on the head with Alex Smith. Yeah, he's an NFC East guy, but I got to respect him, man. He's been through hell in his career and even worse this last 2 years basically of his life, just trying to survive. Really, going from his deathbed, potentially dying on, after his procedure, to leading his team to the playoffs. Whether it's by a gift or not by the Eagles, that doesn't matter at the end of the day. Matters is he's in the playoffs, and that's something that he can hang his hat on. That despite all the injuries, despite everything, that Alex Smith is, I'd say not back, but proved that he can be that guy again if he needs to. So I think that was the most impressive.
Yeah, he's probably going to be I wouldn't say maybe necessarily a starter for any team in the future, but he's definitely going to be a backup that you can bring in. I see him a lot like a Fitzpatrick. I know he started a good portion of this season, but he's a guy that when you do draft a young quarterback, and he's proven it with the what he did with Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City. I think Patrick Mahomes is talented enough that he probably could have figured it out on his own, but his learning curve was expedited because he was underneath Alex Smith. So if I was going to give my biggest shock and probably the thing that I enjoyed the most watching football this season was Alex Smith and the entire football team as a whole, because they had to deal with losing their mascot 3 months before the season. Their owner was pimping out their cheerleaders when they were going abroad to their season ticket holders. And then you have their coach who coached the first six or so weeks of the season with cancer while he's getting chemotherapy, and he did it. He beat it. So I think that 2020 is perfectly embodied in the Washington football team, to where it sucked. There's a lot of stuff that went wrong and a lot of stuff that you never would have expected, but hey, they made it through. They pushed through, and now here we are. We get a 7-9 team in the playoffs again, and that's always exciting because who knows what's going to happen. I know a lot of people are saying that it's a fluke and we shouldn't even be discussing it because they're going to get killed. But hey, any given Sunday, any team can go out there and, make a quick run. That'll bring us into our first topic. We did have Black Monday after the last week of the regular season. Some coaching fires. I know Kelsey's giving a little bit reaction now because he had his team, the Cowboys, ended up clearing house. Everybody they didn't fire McCarthy yet, but they fired the DC and the D-line coach, Jim Tomsula, this morning. But other than that, and I'll go back to Kelsey with this, who was your biggest surprise that got caught in the Black Monday? Or who were you not expecting to get fired and then didn't get fired until the end of the season?
I'm going to start with Adam Gase. My shock. Look, why did it take 17 weeks? And at this point, I don't know. I was more shocked he actually got fired at this point. Just because I've been expecting it every week since week 2, week 3, and it just kept going and kept going and kept going. And here we are, week 17, and they're like, "Yeah, I guess we'll go ahead. Okay, fine. Yeah, we'll get rid of him." Like, come on, Jets, you got to do better. But other than that, I think it's not so much who got fired, but kind of the mentioning of who's getting hired is the bigger reaction. And as the talks of Urban Meyer down there in Jacksonville, whether he goes, and if he's not there, they're also talking about maybe Ryan Day from Ohio State. Getting an Ohio State guy at Jacksonville, and that causes some potential upsets for your number 1 draft pick at the same time. I know Jim's not happy with that, and he'll rebuke that, but I do think an Ohio State guy at Jacksonville, they might not go after Trevor Lawrence, and that's a more interesting topic to evolve from Black Monday.
Yeah, the Urban Meyer story has been crazy. Jim, you've been following it. If you follow at the J-Dash Show on Twitter, everybody knows your stance on the Urban Meyer and what Jacksonville should do. Do you think they're actually going to pull the trigger? Do you think they're going to be able to pull this off and get one of the most maligned, I would say, but also one of the most successful college coaches of all time?
Yes. Because today the Jacksonville Jaguars Friday had a interview with Urban Meyer. Reports out of Jacksonville saying that the interview went for 9 hours on Shad Khan's boat. You don't talk to a coach for 9 hours to not give him the job. There are reports that Saturday's interview with, I want to say, the defensive coordinator of San Francisco, forgot the guy's name, has been canceled.
Robert Saleh.
Solo.
But he's going to get a job somewhere else. So he's going to get
Detroit.
one of the six. He's going to get one of the six. He's rumored there. But it's been rumored that they canceled the interview for tomorrow for Saturday. And knowing Shah Khan and knowing how there's this unwritten rule in the NFL where new hires, especially new head coach hires, don't happen on Saturday or Sunday of Wildcard Weekend because the NFL does not want the attention to go away from the wildcard games. And Urban Meyer is that type of big name in football where if the Jacksonville Jaguars do make this hire, you're, depending on what time it is, you're distracting from maybe, the Bears and Saints game or the Buccaneers and Washington game or one of the playoff games. Just, you don't want that attention. So there's an unwritten rule that I think Jackson's going to follow. But there's so much chatter, there's so much smoke, there's so much fire. There are multiple reports / rumors from local radio stations here in Jacksonville that they had a 9-hour meeting today. And you don't have a 9-hour meeting with a guy that you're not going to hire. And people are talking about, is he going to draft Justin Fields? I'm going to say this right now. He is not going to draft Justin Fields because the talk in Jacksonville is that Shah Khan wants Trevor Lawrence and wants to get the talk to the agent of Trevor Lawrence once that gets officially through. That's going to happen. So Justin Fields is not going to wear a teal and black jersey. Justin Fields may be wearing another black jersey in Atlanta because I don't see the Jets taking the quarterback. I just don't. That's my opinion. But for the head coach and stuff in Jacksonville right now, this city has had some strange vibes. I haven't been in this city in years. Not even 2017. The playoff team with the boat and, Jalen Ramsey and all the way to the AFC Championship game, which was depressing but yet satisfying. But Urban Meyer will be, let me say this again, Urban Meyer will be the next head coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars, and the announcement may come this weekend or Monday. And come April, the first pick of the NFL draft will be Trevor Lawrence, and the second pick might be a running back or a defensive back. That's Jacksonville's plan right now. Not listen to the national media about, they're going to go after Justin Fields. First off, Ohio State. Yes, Urban Meyer was there. He didn't recruit Justin Fields there. He was in the background. When you're in the AD field, when you're outside of football operations, you have no contact with recruits, period. That's an NCAA violation. So when people say, he's going to draft Justin Fields, he never coached Justin Fields. That was Ryan Day. And a couple of years ago, matter of fact, last year, Urban Meyer was quoted as saying that Trevor Lawrence is the best college quarterback he has ever seen play. And now he's going to be the head coach of Jacksonville and the number 1 overall pick. There's no chance in hell he's going to jump over Justin Fields.
Well, just one thing though.
For Justin Fields.
Urban Meyer wasn't the AD during the recruitment of Justin Fields. He was.
But he wasn't on the team.
He was the advisor to recruitment. Which means he can make complete and utter contact with any recruit under NCAA bylaws.
Okay,
and that's how Justin Fields was swung to Ohio State.
But also, people compare the two quarterbacks. Look at the overall record between the two guys. Trevor Lawrence is 5-1 against Justin Fields. 5-1. He swept that ass in high school, like 3-2, and it's 1-1 against Fields now. So. They're gonna be a rivalry in college, and they're gonna be a rivalry in NFL. So it's gonna be next generations. Hopefully, this has been awesome. Brady versus Manning. They come out around the same time and they battle for 15 some odd years. It could be Joe Burrow versus Lawrence. It could be, there's so many damn good quarterbacks to mention. But also throw away the freaking number 1 overall draft pick. Going into Houston for Deshaun Watson. Come on, Houston. Really? No one's going to make that stupid deal. But anyways, I digress.
Also, Houston, that the rumors were not true. I saw Ian Rappaport tweet last night that he asked Houston front office member what it would take to start the talks with Deshaun Watson. It was 3 firsts, a second, and a third, and a player. So they're not actually
looking.
What
team has 3 firsts?
They don't. That's the point.
Yeah,
they're not looking to get rid of Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson might want out of there, but Houston's not willing to give him up quite yet.
It's too much too.
Yeah, it's a lot to give up. He's obviously he's really talented. He led the league in passing this year, almost had 5,000 yards passing. I didn't notice that until the end of the season. But there's so much, you can barely take what any front office or coach says at this point. If they're not in the playoffs, you have to take everything with a grain of salt, because all they're trying to do is throw the scent off of what they really want to do moving towards the draft. Speaking of teams that I thought were going to be caught up in this Black Monday, Zach, I'm going to go to your Bears. I thought Nagy, towards the middle of the season, once they started to struggle with Foles, I really thought that he wasn't going to make it any further in that season. It ended up working out for them. They backed their way into the playoffs in the 7 seed. I know I've gotten your opinion when we've talked throughout the week about what happened with them, but are you surprised that Matt Nagy still has his job, or did you kind of expect this once the team started to turn around?
Yeah, he was going to keep his job when he turned around, and you can't fire, in my opinion, you can't fire a coach for getting to a playoff berth. You can wait if you want. I mean, Bill O'Brien, they waited till the next season to fire him mid-season, and the guy finished 11-5 prior before having to make some silly trades and even more mistakes than he already was making with that roster. But for Matt Nagy, Ryan Pace, they basically saved themselves when they switched to Mitch Trubisky, and you can credit Mitch Trubisky for saving their jobs, as well as them just happening to get to the right part of the schedule when they needed to. And the fact that everything else just happened to fall in place. Arizona, all they had to do was be a little more consistent at the end of the season, and we could be talking a completely different conversation right now, but that's not what happened. And so Matt Nagy gets his job for another year. Same for Ryan Pace. What scares me real quick is that they most likely will get a chance to pick some sort of quarterback, because they have a first-round draft pick for the first time. I'm not saying they'll use it for a QB. There's some of us want to trade back, but there's a depth in that QB class that they will probably go for one. And I know Matt Nagy's there, but Ryan Pace scares the hell out of me just because he already overanalyzed one in the first place. So that's my 2 cents. But yeah, I'm not surprised he's there, quite frankly. I was expecting this. And honestly, in a 4-week span, most of our fan base flipped on the aspect of firing everybody, just because we had the offense for the first time since 1965 put up 4 straight games of 30-plus points. One of them in a loss, surprisingly, to the Detroit Lions, which I thought was the nail in the coffin for that tenure of GM and coach. But I digress. They get to as the new popular phrases around the NFL or in sports, they're gonna run it back probably one more year at the very least with the main guys, including Mitch. I imagine they'll throw a contract of a year to him at least, and we'll sit through that again and see if it works. But I'm not shocked. Yeah, that's my honest opinion about it. I think we're accepting this as below what we should have as a standard, but people don't like change as much. So why change when you can keep the same thing going and maybe improve on it?
Yeah, you kind of got to go with what you know before you take a chance on something.
Exactly.
And with what you know right now, it's pretty much just mediocre. But I think that winning those games definitely saved him. And who knows, maybe we see another BYU quarterback in Chicago, because Wilson, I don't think he's going to be going that high.
Jimmy, I've thought about it. The similarities in not only I would say the aesthetic that Zach Wilson appears with the bandana, coming from BYU, being a spunky QB, it seems like, or at least, quote unquote, at least a little more, not as with authority, if you will, in some of the in the interviews people have talked about for scouting. It comes off as Jim McMahon. I'm just like you. He's probably going to go top 5 or at the very least top 10. Chicago's not going to leverage that much for him. They're already locked into cap, and this is the first draft they've had since 2017 where they have a first-round draft pick. I don't think it'll happen. I think they just want a full draft and see what they can get.
I know a good free agent quarterback you guys can get. He's kind of retired, but I think Jay Cutler can make a return.
You had to do it. Damn it! And
I thought Jay Cutler was playing for Green Bay. I thought.
Yep. You know.
I know. Nico, the Broncos are not looking for a coach; they're looking for a GM. But with all the coaching moves, do you believe in Urban Meyer, or do you believe maybe that? We saw some moves and some things towards the end of the season and on Black Monday that surprised you in the situation for the rest of the league?
People are forgetting the Jaguars also have an open GM position also. That is going to be very important when bringing in the coach as well, because they're going to want a tandem there. they're not gonna pick one coach without having a GM, and so they're gonna decide that with the GM, or they're gonna decide with the coach, who do you want behind you helping even more out. So it won't be Urban Meyer fully into the process of picking Trevor Lawrence or Justin Fields or Zach Wilson or whatever. So that's another thing we have to take into account. But I think the biggest news out of this, I mean, it's 100% Deshaun Watson and the Texans. People are the Texans are asking for a lot, but it is apparent that he is not happy. He is not happy with the Cesario GM signing by the Texans, the guy from the Patriots. That he did not have a say in that. He probably wants to stay in the coaching vacancy. He probably won't have a say in that. And are they willing? Look at this, or take a look at this right now. Deshaun Watson is on his last year of his deal next year, last year of his rookie deal. Do the Texans trade him, try to get assets away, or let him walk? That's the thing we got to think about, because if they're like, we need a full rebuild, full reset, and then not even pay Deshaun Watson even more, then you trade him, and that's where teams can play the hand of Deshaun Watson isn't going to be here after next year. He's going to play one more season there, and he's going to be and he's going to hate it. You guys are going to be a bottom 5 team in the league again. And then what's going to happen? You're going to give him this massive contract. He's not going to want to do that. If you signed a GM that he had no say in, considering this is your franchise quarterback, and honestly has the possibility of being the best franchise player of all time next to JJ Watt, has a chance to do that. And if you don't sign a coach that he is a part of and that can work with well together, then he's out the door, and you get nothing from him. He'll go into free agency, and he will leave Houston Texans like it was nothing ever happened there. And then that's where teams like the Broncos, like the Falcons, like the Patriots, and maybe even the Jets can sweep in and be like, Deshaun Watson is last year's deal. Do you really want to let him walk? And that's the leverage teams are going to have to go with it. It was ridiculous that they signed the GM without consulting the quarterback of your team and the leader of that team, because there's no doubt in my mind that Deshaun Watson is a leader of that team, him and JJ Watt alongside each other. I mean, we all saw what JJ Watt said after Deshaun Watson, or after the last game of the year. He said, "I'm sorry for wasting another year of your career." Is he willing to do that again next year? I don't think so. Are the Texans willing to not have players around him? I don't know. That's where the Texans' dilemma is. The Texans are the newest franchise still in the NFL, and they've never been able to come over the hump. It's an apparent problem down there in Houston. When it comes to the rest of the coaching firings, I mean, there was really nothing expected. Anthony Lynn already was out the door. There was no doubt in my mind he should have been fired right away. Adam Gase didn't even make it off the field, and they fired him. That was no surprise. It comes down to the GM, the coach work together. That's why I think it's very important for the Broncos right now to get a GM ASAP. Because right now we're seeing like we said, NFL likes to wait until after the playoffs games, and then Monday, Tuesday is when the news start coming out about head coaching hires after the first round playoffs. So I'm hoping the Broncos either bring in Champ Kelly from Chicago, which I like a lot. He's the assistant down there in San Francisco. I can't think of his name. The assistant GM to John Lynch. That's another guy that I like for the Broncos, but you have to make moves quickly, because with Matt Nagy too in Chicago, he may have saved his ass for one more game because he made the playoffs, but if he gets his ass run into by the Saints, I would not be surprised if he's out the door, and the Bears look toward a guy like Robert Saleh. Because imagine the defensive presence of Khalil Mack and Robert Saleh. That's a dangerous combo, and that Bears defense is already really good. They just need the right leadership.
There's a lot.
I do want to comment on this, because this has been a discussion. They're more likely, I would say, to fire Chuck Pagano before they fire any head coaches. Since week 12 against Green Bay, the Bears defense, whether it's injuries or mostly scheming, it's been Pagano's doing of taking steps backwards and regressing. But I mean, I love Robert Saleh, by the way. Wherever he goes, the guy, I think, comes from one of the most solid coaching organizations that you have right now in the NFL, or at least one of the best organizations when it comes to structure. So I'd take him wherever you go, especially since Detroit already interviewed him today, and it was a pretty nice interview, I hear. So
go ahead, Jim.
Nico, I'm not bashing you, but I knew you saying that Deshaun had 1 year left on his contract deal. In September of this year, he signed an extension 5-year deal, $160 million price tag. So that's the reason why it's going to be hard trading him. Who's going to take that? Who's going to take that contract?
One of the only teams with a cap space right now to probably be able to do that and then still not leverage their entire future on it would be Jacksonville. But I think Jacksonville's ready to draft another quarterback and start that way. Deshaun Watson's definitely one of the more interesting stories just because of how that team fell apart so miraculously in the whole season. It started week 1 when they played the Chiefs, and everybody thought it was going to be a lot closer game. I know Nico and I, when we did our show, that was before we even got involved with the network, but we thought that they were going to be difficult. We thought they were going to build off their playoff run last year. Obviously that wasn't the case. And when you trade away DeAndre Hopkins, who's a top 5 receiver, maybe top 3 receiver in the league, there's never going to be a good thing that comes out of that. So Deshaun Watson, wherever, I think that he's probably going to stay put in Houston, but that's definitely one of the more disappointing stories, I would say, coming out of this 2020 season, that you get a talented guy. It's very similar to Stafford. That's the way that it's trending. I think that Watson's probably a lot more talented than Stafford is, but that's going to be one person that I am very interested to see what happens throughout the rest of his career.
I also saw Miami into it too. That was a rumor I saw yesterday.
That would be first. Miami's been really interesting too, because I was listening to Pardon My Take, and there's the thought that they're in the top 5 of the draft. They got the 3rd pick in this year's draft. Maybe if they aren't fully committed to Tua, they already announced him as next year's starter, but that just might be another smokescreen because, like we said, you can't really take into consideration what everybody thinks. But if Miami does use that 3rd pick, maybe one of the top quarterbacks falls and doesn't get drafted number 2 overall, does anybody see Miami drafting a quarterback? Kelsey, what do you think about that situation over there with the Dolphins?
I don't think they draft a quarterback, but I will say out of all the teams in the NFL that has the pieces to make a trade and a run for Deshaun, it is Miami. They do have 2 first-round picks this year. They could partner it with another one next year. They also have, plenty of second-round picks. I think they have something like 5 over the next 2 years, second-round picks.
Thank you, Minka Fitzpatrick.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, you talk about the Dolphins. If they're not sold on Tua, don't draft a quarterback. Just send those picks elsewhere. And it wouldn't surprise me if they do that. But honestly, I think Brian Flores is more than happy with what Tua brings. I think it fits what he wants from a quarterback, a game manager, somebody that's not going to cost him a game. But, as long as they get a running back with these top picks, defensive players to fill in spots, I think the Dolphins could do it, but I don't see them doing it. But I do think if anybody makes a run at Deshaun, it wouldn't surprise me if it's Miami, just because they do have the pieces to do it.
Yeah, they've been pretty smart with all the different personnel moves that they've made, being able to get as much draft capital as they have. And the Laramie Tunsil move that got them the 3rd pick in this year's draft, that was something that it should be taught in business school. If you're studying business, look at how they were able to make that happen. Other news coming out of week 17, we'll start with the happy news and then we'll end with one of the more disgusting acts that we've seen in the NFL. But first off, the Cleveland Browns have broken an 18-year playoff drought. We thought it was going to happen last year. Freddie Kitchen proved that he was about as smart as the buffet that he wrote his game plans up at. But Kevin Stefanski, and we can talk about the situation with this week in the Browns with him, but he was able to get the Browns over the hump. All that talent finally got them into the playoffs, and Cleveland will have playoff football for the first time in 18 years. So what do we think about the dog pound? And now they have to play the Steelers again, now with all their healthy starters. But did they make a big statement? Do you think that now they've kind of announced themselves as a franchise that's not going to be towards the bottom of the league anymore? And I'll open this up to Zach first.
If I may. Ready. Yeah, if I may, and I don't mean to jump the gun on you there, but real quick, my thing at the very least with this, it is a step towards culture change away from mediocrity. Getting to a 11-win season is, I would say in itself, no matter what the schedule is in the NFL, it's impressive in its own right. I would argue that this is definitely something that it adds building blocks for this organization moving forward. And they have a young roster that they are built around. There's obviously issues with certain pieces next year. What do you do with Odell Beckham Jr. in particular? Because the team runs better, it seems, with him off the field. They're a better run first team. And obviously Jarvis Landry is more team friendly when it comes to being the receiver that can do it all, as besides just catching. But overall, if we're talking just culture, I would say this is a win for the Browns. You have to be happy with it no matter what. If you're talking how the season ended, going against backups in particular, or at least key players that are backups, yeah, I don't feel too great going into this wild card, because the main reason that you avoided overtime is because they couldn't convert a 2-point conversion at the end with Pittsburgh, being led by Mason Rudolph, mind you, when we got the Mason Myles Garrett Part 2, the sequel that didn't really do anything. So I don't feel too confident going in, but I would say that maybe it gives like Baker Mayfield an edge. I mean, one thing we know about Baker, he responds to criticism in his own way, and sometimes he comes out and he slings a rock when people get on them the most. So I'll have my predictions on that game later, but culture-wise, at least, you got to be happy with what you see out there in Cleveland. It gets them away from the 18 years of mediocrity and the carousel of quarterbacks that almost looked like it would never end.
Yeah, I wanted Baker to be able to come in and succeed, and I'm going to go to Nico next because he's got a young quarterback that needs to kind of make the same jump that Baker was able to do from last year in his slump. But does the Baker Mayfield season and the Browns season, does that give you hope for Drew Lock and the Broncos moving forward? And you can answer both parts of that question, Nico.
I'm just gonna save my ass and not worry about Drew Lock until he's solidified. So I'm not gonna talk about that man for right now. But I'm gonna talk more. I'm gonna highlight Baker because Baker has shown that he has revitalized an organization that has been in the shitter. They have not done anything in so many years. It's not like Drew Lock is coming into an organization that has been shit for 50 years. The Broncos have won a Super Bowl in the last 5 years, and people forget. I'll remind you all again. But Baker Mayfield brought an organization out of the gutter. That team, they kind of got lucked out because it was obvious what Pittsburgh was doing. Pittsburgh cut their playbook down in half, maybe even more, and said, this is more than likely our first round matchup. Let's not throw our starters out there. Let's not show the playbook. Let's not give them any film to look at during week 17. Let's make them go back a few weeks back and have them guessing what's going to happen. It was more of a mind trick by the Steelers, obviously, because the Steelers could care less about the Browns still. I mean, obviously this weekend is a huge matchup, and it's going to be interesting seeing what the Browns can they overtake their rivals, quote unquote rivals? Can they overtake the team that's ran the division for so long? Who knows? But the Browns have to get it out of their mind that they're the little brothers. They have to, and making the playoffs is good, but considering you're playing the Steelers in the first round, it's a ruined season. Even if you made the playoffs, if you lose to the Steelers, it doesn't matter because you lost to the Steelers in the playoffs. It doesn't matter. That's just the way Cleveland thinks, and that's the way that organization is. Woohoo! You made the playoffs. You got a T-shirt that said Wildcard Champs or whatever. That means nothing if you lose to the Steelers in the first round and get your ass handed to. So the Browns need to make a statement for this to be a successful season. They're on the right track 100%. They got a young core around them. I mean, we're also forgetting they don't have OBJ. OBJ could, I mean, they quote unquote maybe have been better than without OBJ, but they're losing a huge offensive piece throughout the whole season, and they have two of the best running backs in the game right now. The offense makes it a lot easier on Baker Mayfield when Jarvis Landry is doing great things. Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb are running the ball like no other. So that defense is finally gelling together too. So the Browns have to beat the Steelers to have a successful season. If you lose in the next round to the Bills or the Chiefs or whatever, then you can say you can hang your hat. But if you lose the Steelers handily in the first round, it's an unsuccessful season.
Jim, do you agree with Nico that if the Browns end up losing, that it was a hell of a turnaround this year? But do you think that if they aren't able to win this wild card weekend round, do you think that it overall becomes a loss on the season?
It won't be a loss because they made the postseason, but it'll be the repeat of 2002. You make the playoffs, play the Steelers, and you lose to the Steelers. Yes, they got over the hump. They got into the postseason, but there's a bigger hump for them to get over, and they haven't got by that yet, and that's the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, if they advance this weekend, and we talk about the Browns next weekend, then yes, they've gotten over the hump. And I guarantee there's a lot of Browns fans out there that will celebrate a win over the Steelers this weekend as a Super Bowl, and they won't mind what happens in the divisional round. Okay, we lost the divisional round, but at least we beat the Steelers. But for that city that's been through so much BS and so much crap and so many quarterbacks over the years, and Baker Mayfield stepping his game up, it really, you got to look at it from a perspective. It's like they've accomplished so much this season, but yet there's something always been in the back about to knock them out, that distract them from a good season. And that happened with the head coach Stefanski and a couple of coaches and a couple of players with the COVID situation this week. But for the city of Cleveland, it's a big achievement. They made the playoffs, but it's deja vu from 2002 unless they can get over that final hump. And I'll have my prediction later in the show, but it's an improvement. It's been a while, and Cleveland fans are celebrating what the Buffalo fans did in 2017 when their streak ended for making the postseason. But Buffalo lost to Jacksonville that year, so maybe Cleveland can be something different. But usually teams that have long droughts in postseasons and they make the postseason, they don't get out of the first round. There's a percentage. I think it's like 22% actually advance out of the first round from having long droughts. So the odds are not in their favor, but this is COVID season. Anything can happen.
If this season has taught us anything, it is that any given Sunday is still as true as it was when the phrase was first coined. It does seem like the Browns always have something going against them. I'm going to go to Kelsey with this, but they had their most successful season record-wise, but they also had to deal with two other teams in their division also being, towards the top of the league in the AFC, and the Ravens and Steelers. What did you think about the Browns finally breaking their streak of not making the playoffs? And do you think that if they lose this weekend, that it would kind of taint their season?
I don't know if they lose this weekend, if it taints their season. It depends on how they lose. I mean, you kind of stumbled your way into the playoffs. Let's be honest. You almost, against backups, went to overtime, and it's a failed 2-point conversion that prevented you. You literally gave the game back to the Steelers. So mentality-wise, I don't know how much really changed in Cleveland. Like these Brown, Nico's said it since I don't know how long now. We keep hearing it that the little brother feeling for the Browns against the Steelers, and it comes to play. If they can win, then yeah, I'll say something's changed in Cleveland. But honestly, like if they get blown out, I said with or without Kevin Stefanski in there, it doesn't matter. I mean, it's the same story, different chapter at this point. You can't get past the Steelers unless they get past. When the day they get past the Steelers is the day that I'll say, yeah, something's changed. But maybe a little slight change. Maybe it's the beginning of change. Maybe the first tooth came loose in the gear, but it's not fully there yet. I mean, yeah, you're moving in the right direction, but you kind of stumbled your way into the right direction. Wasn't fully convincing. And I love to be proven wrong. I know Baker loves to prove people wrong, so give him his chance to do it. But I got to give all the credit to Baker, though, because he has turned this team from a winless team into a playoff team, even despite all the terrible coaching staffs he's had to deal with up until now, whether it's Baker or not, but he is still part of the team. Myles Garrett as well. That young core has a chance to turn the corner, but I can't say, yes, they've turned the corner yet because they still have to face off with the Steelers team. But if they give a good fight and maybe it goes to overtime or maybe it's a last-second loss, I'll give them the credit where credit's due. Yeah, okay, you started to turn the corner. But if it's a blowout, there's no chance.
Yeah, it's all depending on how the team ends up performing in the game. That's going to be the main thing. But I do think that the Browns, from where they were a few years ago, going 0-16, drafting Baker, nobody expected them to draft Baker number 1 overall. He's proven a lot of people wrong, like you said. So I give him credit where that is due, but I watched the mic'd up. They had Jarvis Landry mic'd up for this past weekend, and I watched that, and you could tell even on the sideline, most of those players, once Pittsburgh started to make their comeback, it was almost like every single Browns player went, shit, here we go. We're going to end up giving this thing up, and they're going to beat us and knock us out of the playoffs, even though we won 10 games this season. That's what the mentality of that sideline was. Credit to them. They ended up finishing it, whether the circumstances around it helped them or not. But there is still that little bit of, oh man, if we let one team if we let them score one time, we basically just might as well phone it in. That was the only disappointing part from their performance that I saw. Moving on now, the other big story out of Week 17, it was the Sunday night game. Everybody was looking forward to it, and it looked like we were going to have a 6-10 team make the playoffs, because if Philadelphia had kept Jalen Hurts in and not actively threw the game away, they would have been able to make the playoffs, and Washington would have missed. But it didn't happen. Nate Sedfeld, I don't even know how to pronounce his name. The guy, I'm going to call him Paul Crew, because they were shaving points. That's what they were doing. I guess I'll just open it up to what everybody's opinion on that whole shit show was, and if it sets a bad, if you're not a football fan and that's the game you turned on, does it set a bad precedent for what the league is moving forward? I'll start with Nico on this one.
Well, I mean, with Nate Sudfeld, like people like the whole stigma of Doug Peterson saying that he wanted to get him reps is bullshit, because he started a game 2 years ago. I forgot. I think it was either for the Rams or it was from somebody as a backup role where he had to fill in during an injury. The dude, like, it's not like we haven't seen it. He's been around for a few years now. He just got thrown into a game that people were just like, I guess I don't care. It's ridiculous. Jumping off sides on 4th and 1. That was obviously terrible. I mean, that happens, and that happens in normal time.
Also the fact that guy went after Alex Smith's leg. That was
also,
too.
also very, very shitty. But that's just the rivalry of the NFC East. I mean, everyone hates them down. Everyone hates the Eagles for a reason. Eagles fans are some. I'm gonna get a lot of slack for this, but they're some of the worst. Philadelphia fans are some of the worst fans in America. There's no doubt about it. I hate saying that because I'm gonna get slack for it, but it's no fact about it. Jalen Hurts is your quarterback of the future, and you're sitting him down and saying we don't care about you. Finishing the last game of your season and going out on a high note, we don't care about that. That does not set a right mindset to your team. There's reports coming out about defensive players want to go fight Doug Peterson during the game, and everyone saw the video of Jalen Hurts as well, mouthing the words, "This is bullshit." I was like, why am I out? We're coming back. We just scored. It's ridiculous that this happened. I would not be surprised if the Eagles lose a future first-round pick for this. I'm gonna say it right now. I think that's in. They're either gonna lose a draft pick, but I would not be surprised if a future first, because they just robbed the team of the playoffs. Yeah, as shitty as the Giants were throughout the regular season, they won when they had to. When it was the last game of the year, they pulled out a win and they beat the Cowboys. Considering they busted their ass for that game, that Week 17 game, and they tried their hardest to make the playoffs, even if everything went against their heads, that is disrespectful to the sport of football. The sport of football is better than this. Doug, I will be honest. I will say I was wrong last week because I thought Doug Peterson deserved another year to work with Jalen Hurts, but this blasphemy and this idiocracy should not be tolerated in the NFL. And Roger Goodell needs to make a statement about this, because there's obvious what happened on Sunday.
I'm not going to disagree with anything you say, Zach. I'll pose this question to you: I'm not going to go that hard. What the hell is Doug Peterson doing with his quarterback room? Because he already pissed off his $128 million quarterback by benching him, even though he rightfully or otherwise. But now you piss off your young quarterback who you thought was going to be possibly your future, and you have a $128 million contract that doesn't want to play as a backup. What the hell is he doing with his quarterback?
Well, I won't go as far as what you were hinting at either with the language there, but look, you could go with that if you wanted. There is justification for that sort of language for what in the world this man is doing. A coach that only had won a Super Bowl just three seasons ago. Yeah, just 3 seasons ago. We're talking about a Super Bowl winning coach with a potential MVP candidate up until a ACL tear against the LA Rams. And now we're at a point of disarray that looks like some of the bottom feeders in the NFL, which is where they are right now anyway. I mean, this year the NFC East was the worst division in football, and they were the worst of the worst. And I'll tell you one thing with that game. I definitely say it felt as if they were throwing it. I mean, one thing that does stick out, they moved up 3 draft positions just because they switched over to Nate Sudfeld, who is at this point a journeyman quarterback. I know journeymen generally go a little longer, and he's only been in the league 4 years, but he's been with 2 teams. He was drafted as a 6th-round draft pick for the then known Washington Redskins. Apologies, but that was the name beforehand. It's now the Washington football team. And then he went over, and now he plays with Philadelphia. He's more of the all-star in the preseason. He is never intended to be the starter. I don't know what to tell you there. I would have been fine if they would have announced him as starter and said they're packing it in there because they're just knowing the season's over. Because they had gotten to that point the week prior that had been blown out to the Dallas Cowboys and said, they could have just said right there, okay, we'll pack it in. We'll let Jalen Hurts maybe rest this off, and then we can restart next year when he has a full off season, and then we can work on his intangibles and whatnot. But instead, they decided on national television, mind you, one of the worst Sunday Night Football games I have ever watched in my life, to switch with a 3-point deficit to a quarterback that is a journeyman that has not really proved himself in a role on that stage or in a starting caliber in that time. And I don't really know what to say, except they were probably throwing it to A, just because Doug Peterson can do what he wants, and B, because it does move them up some draft picks. Even with Jalen Hurts being 7 of 20 passing at the moment they switched him out in that contest, he had scored 2 rushing touchdowns. You were down by 3 points. The Washington football team was also looking pretty ugly at times. I mean, Alex Smith wasn't exactly lighting up the scoreboard. He was throwing dink and dunk passes or getting picks as well.
Mm-hmm. No, so, it was, they tried to give that game back to Philadelphia when Philadelphia showed that they tried to tank.
That's exactly
and I agree with you. Like, if they would have just came out and said Sudfeld was going to start the whole week, then it doesn't look so much like active tanking. But it was almost like Doug Peterson had no faith in his team at all. And I'll go to the other NFC East fan, Kelsey, with this. But do you think Doug Peterson maybe thought that they had a better chance to lose with Hurts, and then when he got close, he just decided to make the switch?
I don't know what Doug Peterson thought. I don't know who gave him the green light to do whatever he did, but that comes from somewhere. And if that came from up top, also, by the way, we talk about, people making contact with people they're not supposed to. That's also something illegal by in itself. If that comes down from the box, that they need to, take out Jalen Hurts and put in Sudfeld, that's something penalized that the league can penalize. We talk about penalizing, but yeah, I don't know what Doug Peterson was thinking, man. This is your job's already on the hot seat. Let's go bring in Nate freaking Sudfeld, who we just re-signed in the offseason to a year deal, and who you've seen play before, who is, as a career starter, 12-14 in college, didn't even start all his games in college. He started one game in the NFL and got kicked out of the game by the second quarter, mind you. Never even finished the game. The dude has, I don't even know his QBR, but if I had to guess, I'd say sub 50 QBR. And just based off of his stats, I mean, it's awful. Like, what do you mean you need to see something from Nate Sudfeld? You want to see what he brings. You see it every single day in practice, every single day in walkthroughs. You don't go through the offseason, the preseason, and practice and don't see your third-string quarterback play. You see it every year. I don't know what Doug Peterson's thinking other than purely saying, fuck you to the NFL, screw you fans, screw you players, and screw everything about anything to do with the NFL. This game was put in primetime because it had a lot on the line, and it's an NFC East matchup. And Doug Peterson single-handedly, or whoever gave him the green light, shit on the entire fan base of the NFL. If this is your first game watching the NFL, I'm sorry, that's not what NFL is. And this is the same coach that gave a speech about winning games and how important they are. How important every single game is to go out and play your hardest. This is the same coach that did that is sitting here now, pulling his quarterback, first of all, on that drive in the red zone. Both third and fourth down, you're rolling out your quarterback against the best edge rushing team in the league, especially this part of the season. They have been outstanding. Nobody wants to try to go outside the pocket against them. And you're only blocking 4 or 5 against this 6-man rush coming at you. And you're then having him roll out to your left against this weak side and try to throw a pigtail route in the back of the end zone where your guy slips on fourth down. Instead of doing the smart thing and taking the points, and that right there, it was the moment you knew, like, this is over. And then all of a sudden Nate Sudfeld goes in, and then all hell breaks loose because there's like 7 botched snaps between both teams at the end of the game, 3 picks. Like, that is the ugliest thing I can call football I've seen since watching 4-year-olds play. Like, I watch 4-year-olds that are better than what I saw on Sunday night.
No, Doug Peterson came from high school, and that was probably worse than any high school game that I can remember watching, JV, freshman, or otherwise. Jim, was this active tanking on the part of Doug Peterson, and do you think the NFL should take action against it?
I think the NFL is going to take action with it no matter what. But was it a form of tanking? Yes. But it also tells you that the Philadelphia Eagles hate the city of New York more than they hate the city of Washington. And that's just a rivalry in that division. Now, and let's say if the Cowboys were involved, I guarantee the Giants would have done it. But for a division that's been so, I can't even say so par, the division's been god awful all year. Even the division champion at 7-9 doesn't look like a good 7-9 champion. But to say that you're giving guys reps in the final game of the season on primetime TV, knowing that playoff stipulations are on line for two teams in this game. One of them's not in the game. The other one already played earlier in the day. And you pull off that snafu plus your history from saying that you got to play every single game. You know, you're in the NFL, every single game you got to play hard to win. It's a bad image on the National Football League. But I think Doug Peterson did it to a point that it is more of a rivalry against New York's. Like, if we can't make it, screw you. You guys are not making it either. And I do agree with Nico. Philadelphia are the most trashiest, arrogant fan base in the National Football League.
They booed Santa Claus.
Yeah, them and
they flipped over Santa Claus. Slay too. Let's not even forget.
They're I think they're worse than the Raider fans. And the Raider fans.
No. Do not do that. No, stop. Raiders fans and Lakers fans are some of the worst. I'd say Philadelphia because all their sports teams are just, it doesn't matter. I can handle Dodgers fans every once in a while. I can handle other teams in LA, but like I can't handle all Philadelphia teams. But Raiders fans, don't even get me started with the Raiders fans.
Raiders fans shiv people in the stands. That's
so do Dodgers fans.
Another thing.
Or throw car batteries at you.
Same fan base. Dodgers and Raiders are pretty much the same fan base because the Raiders were in LA for so long.
That's true.
And the Lakers too.
I will say, out of this whole thing, you know who I'm waiting to hear from the Eagles? I'm waiting to hear from Darius Slay, and I'm waiting to hear from Jason Kelce. The two biggest front runners on this team as far as social media and being outspoken. Darius Slay's never had an issue talking shit about his coach. I mean, we saw what he said about Matt Patricia. He's never had an issue calling him out. And so I've yet to see him say anything yet, and I've yet to see Jason Kelce say anything. And we all saw Jason Kelce's face on the sideline with his Mick Foley caveman-looking self. He was not happy. And he was, I don't know who was the defensive players trying to go after Doug Peterson, but I'll be honest, I wouldn't blame any of them had they done anything.
He'll be in another jersey next season.
I think there's a lot of Eagles players that are probably going to want out of that organization, depending on where their contracts are at. They might be able to get out or not. It's just really bad on the league as a whole. And I never thought that I'd see it in an actual game. Yeah, I've watched The Longest Yard. I've seen the story about Paul Crewe and how he actually did shave points on a game because he had money riding on it. It made me pretty upset just as a football fan in general, and it should make everybody upset. And this is not something that should be going unpunished. This needs to be something that's addressed full out in the media. And I think, we might even see Doug Peterson get suspended a few games for next season because of what he did. But there's a lot more that we'll talk about that moving forward as more details come out about it. We're going to go to a quick break. We're just out over an hour here on NFL Unhinged, the super Wildcard Weekend version of NFL Unhinged. So we are going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll get into the pickems and our predictions because we got a new format for the playoff predictions. Don't go anywhere. You're listening to NFL Unhinged on the Unhinged Sports Network. And we're back. Welcome back to NFL Unhinged, live on the Unhinged Sports Network. You're either listening to this Saturday or Sunday morning, or watching this on the Far End of the Bench YouTube channel. But be sure to follow the network on Twitter at Network Unhinged, Instagram at UnhingedSN. You can listen live on unhingedsn.airtime.pro 24/7. All great shows. Every single one of my panel here for NFL Unhinged has a great podcast on the show. Zach Kyleman with the Gridiron Gallery podcast, Nico with myself and the Far End of the Bench, Kelsey and DJ with High Low Sports, and then obviously Jim, J-Dash with the J-Dash Show. with him and Carlos. We talked a good portion about some of the things that came out of the end of the regular season. And I know we're an NFL show, but there is some pretty big college football coming up. And I think we're going to see some teams that have players that'll end up on some of our favorite teams moving forward. I'm looking at you, Nico, with Patrick Surtain from Alabama, if he ends up falling that far. But we want to talk a little bit about the national championship because it's a big matchup. I know Nico picked this as his national championship. I didn't expect Ohio State to run through Clemson the way that they did, but we'll go ahead and give our opinion on this since this will be out before the national championship. Zach, I'll start with you. Ohio State, Alabama in the national championship. What are you expecting out of this game?
Well, I think you're going to get a standard performance from Alabama. Here, the bigger questions for this contest are going to be, first off, can Ohio State repeat the exact same momentum that they brought out against Clemson? Because no one expected them to come out against Clemson and smack them in the face the way they did. Most people didn't. I didn't myself. I ate crow on Beyond the Press Box for that, but that's okay. So they have to repeat that performance. The key, in my opinion, comes down to which defensive coordinator's game plan is the best for this. Because you're stacked on both sides. You know, Justin Fields obviously is one of the top picks in the NFL draft. Mac Jones is also a first-round draft pick, most likely. Not to mention you have Devontae Smith over there, Heisman Trophy winner, Najee Harris. You can mention Trey Sermon as well on the Ohio State Buckeyes. Offensively, these two are stacked. Which one's going to be a better coordinated game defensively by either Pete Golding or Kerry Coombs is the thing. And specifically when we talk consistency, Kerry Coombs' unit, when it comes to the passing game this year, has been spotty up until, of course, against Clemson, but that was more with the pass rush. I really think it comes down to the defensive end of the ball, and I think Alabama, this is one of Nick Saban's best teams he has ever put together. I think this is a pretty tall Mount Everest to climb for Ohio State. You would have to really be jazzed to get to the same level of momentum that you had going into Clemson. I just don't see it with Ohio State. I'm going to take Alabama as my prediction.
I'm right there with you with having to eat crow on Ohio State. I'm pretty outspoken about my distaste for that program as a whole, but they did come out. They had some fire in them. They wanted to avenge that loss from last year's playoff. But I did see one of their quarterbacks, cornerbacks, I can't remember their name, but he said that he wanted to come out and cover Devontae Smith. And I thought that they would maybe learn that if you talk shit before the game, it fires the other team up. But then again, it's Ohio State, and I don't think learning has gone on there ever in their school's history. So it doesn't actually surprise me all that much. I'm going to go to Kelsey next, and he's also going to give us DJ's picks for the national championship game. But Clemson, Alabama, who do you have walking away with the national championship?
Yeah, so I'll go ahead and get DJ's pick out of the way. He obviously went to Alabama. When we did our pick, he actually had Clemson winning the national championship against Alabama, but obviously since Clemson didn't make it, he has to change his pick. But for me, I look at it. I picked Alabama from day one to walk away with the national championship, and I do think that's going to be exactly what we see. This is the best offense single-handedly for a Nick Saban team ever, no doubt in my mind. You have three guys on that offense that should have been in the Heisman Trophy ceremony. Najee Harris got completely shafted, and everybody looks at him and they ignore him, really. You're talking about possibly the best running back to ever come out of that university by the end of the day because of what he can do passing in the pass game and in the run game. He is such a natural pass reception guy and such a natural runner. It's freakish. What he did against Notre Dame is nothing. He's jumped over guys bigger and taller and faster than some Joe Schmo from Notre Dame, which I guess is insulting to Notre Dame, but who cares? What he did to that guy was insulting. So, look at that. This is coming from an Auburn guy. I got, it hurts me to give love to Alabama, but this is one of those cases. First of all, I think Ohio State burst their load too early. I mean, you were set up to face Clemson the entire season. Your day one from last season's loss is built towards facing Clemson. And you finally did that. What do you do now? Oh, wait, we got to go face Alabama. Oh, boy. Let me get right on that. And I still think something's wrong with Justin Fields. You don't take the injuries and give the facial expressions he had in that game, and there's not something wrong with his rib cage. It wouldn't surprise me if it is broken ribs. And if he plays, I'll be shocked. If he plays well, I'll be even more shocked. But it wouldn't surprise me if it comes out after the season that he was playing with either cracked or broken or heavily bruised ribs in the national championship game. But I just think Alabama is too good, and they can easily shut down Justin Fields, so it's the Trey Sermon show. And, well, they shut him down last year at Oklahoma, so it wouldn't surprise me if they could do it again.
Yeah, this is the biggest game Justin Fields has played in his entire life because he never won a high school state championship. Obviously lost in last year's semifinal, won this year's semifinal, but the national championship is another level. So what you're telling me is that Ohio State should have focused a little bit more on foreplay before they actually, went all the way
Look,
through.
like you said, there's not been any learning done at Ohio State in a long time, and so they just see a big O on the side of there, and that's they go straight for the middle. They don't try to play around a little bit. So yeah, that is what it is.
Well, I appreciate, as an Auburn fan, you giving Alabama the credit that they deserve. I agree with you and Zach that this is probably one of the most offensively talented, at least Nick Saban teams that he's ever had. Jim, I'm going to go to you next for your prediction on this game. Alabama, Ohio State, Ryan Day versus Nick Saban. Do you think that in Ryan Day's first crack at a national championship, he's going to win one? Or do you think Saban gets, I believe, his 7th national championship as a head coach?
As much as I want to see it happen, I can't pick Ohio State. This is, I think, the best Alabama team I've ever seen. They have an explosive offense. They got a dominant running game. Their defense is questionable, but when their defense decides to bow up, it can shut down anybody. But you got to give credit where credit's due. Ohio State basically shut me up about Clemson. They just exposed Clemson's weakness, which was their offensive line. And I don't care who you have there back in Lawrence, Peyton Manning, Tom Brady. No one was going to do anything against that Ohio State defensive line and the Sugar Bowl last week. But to make it short and sweet, far in the bench, and Jimmy has been preaching about SEC versus Big Ten for the last couple of weeks. He finally gets his SEC versus Big Ten. And this would be the final, nail in the coffin of why the SEC is far superior to the Big Ten.
Not far superior.
To bottom.
Not far superior at all.
I'll even agree with Jimmy on that one. As an SEC guy, like SECs this year, you can't. They're trash this year. It's a lot like NFC East.
Tell me what
Auburn.
Tell me what happened to your conference runner-up there, Jim, in their bowl game. Tell me what happened to the SEC conference runner-up.
I'm not an SEC fan.
He's an ACC fan. That's even worse.
Well, okay. Well, then tell me what happened to the second best team in the SEC when they played Oklahoma.
Nothing good.
Yeah, exactly.
Nothing good.
And me, hey, University of Florida. I'm an FSU grad, right?
When's the last time Florida State ever made anything of them?
2013.
Yeah, exactly. And Jameis Winston still in crab legs is the last time in the news.
Kelsey.
Or sorry, wait, no, Francois punching somebody.
Kelsey.
Last time they were in the news.
Kelsey.
Or what about the old man falling asleep reading a book in the student section for Florida State?
All right.
Kelsey.
We've made
Kelsey, I can keep going.
We've proved our point. We've proved our point. Let's get to Nico's pick because I know he has. I mean, we both have a former teammate that's in this game. So Nico, what do you have happening in this college football playoff national championship?
Kelsey.
You guys want to continue with that, or I mean, I'm a big SEC guy too. Like I'll admit it. I mean, the only college football team I root for plays in the Pac-12, and they're the laughing stock of college football. So I'm not gonna argue much about SEC versus Big Ten, but I'm picking them. I'm picking Alabama 100%. Like I said, former teammate Charlie Scott. I talked to him a few times, and he's ready to roll. And I'm hoping he gets to punt the ball some, but I have a high doubt that there's going to be any punting this game.
I don't want to see Alabama's punter at all in this game.
So I think it could be a 40-40 game or something stupid like that.
Arena football, baby.
But I mean, people talk about Mac Jones versus Justin Fields, but the marquee matchup is Najee Harris versus Trey Sermon. Trey Sermon, if he had 10 games of work, he could have been the second in the Heisman. Because if you look at his last 5 games, he's putting up video game numbers. There's no doubt in my mind if he would have played a full season, that he would have been right up there for Heisman candidate. I believe he probably would have been second behind Devontae Smith. In that argument could have been Trey Sermon. Maybe you got to go give it to a running back being the Heisman, but it is obvious that Alabama is retooled. It's like I said before, it's asinine that this team is better after losing 4 starters last year or maybe 4, maybe it was 5. I don't know. 4 or 5 starters, the quarterback, running back, and 2 receivers, and they're better. And no Jalen Waddle since the beginning of the year. It's crazy. I don't know if this is Saban's last run, but it could very well be his last big run, because I bet a bunch of these offensive weapons are leaving to the NFL next year with good purpose. But Devontae Smith, best player in college football. I hope he gets used to that turf down there in Miami, because I guarantee you right now, he will be a Miami Dolphin next year, because the Dolphins are sitting at the number 3 spot with the Heisman Trophy finalists playing in their stadium. And you have a chance to pair Tua back with Devontae Smith. They're not missing on that. So Devontae Smith, get used to that stadium and turf, because you're going to be a Miami Dolphin.
Former roommates, by the way, Tua and Devontae Smith. Fun
Exactly.
fact. That freshman year where Tua threw it up in the national championship.
That was what I was about to bring up. They have that national championship connection that'll live forever. One of the greatest, as a radio broadcast guy, just one of the greatest calls that I can remember. Chris Fowler's touchdown when Devontae Smith did score. It was, I was disappointed because I thought Georgia should have won it that year, and they were damn close to it. But, this Alabama team's something else.
Georgia would have won if they would have made all the field goals they missed.
Yeah, Rodrigo sunk my Blankenship there. But it's a good matchup. I think that this matchup is probably going to be maybe a little bit more competitive than Clemson and Alabama would have been. But Alabama's defense is what really showed me that they're ready for this next step in their season, because I've been talking about it all year that their offense is what's carrying them to their wins, but their defense pretty much, they bowed up. And yeah, it was Ian Book and Notre Dame, but they proved the SEC, all they do is recruit fast guys from down there, and the speed was definitely evident, and I think we're probably going to see that again. This is not the Big Ten team that I wanted to represent in the Big Ten versus SEC matchup, but it's the one that we were gifted.
It's the best Big Ten team it is, so they are going to represent the Big Ten the best they can. Even if you hate them, they are the best Big Ten team this year, no doubt about it.
Yes, not bad for a number 11 team,
And they're the only one that's capable of knocking off Alabama.
Yeah,
I fully agree with that.
Yeah.
They're the only team this year that probably could have beat them. I agree with that. So the clean sweep for Alabama in the national championship from the NFL UnHinged panel. So now we might as well move into our regular NFL picks. And I said it before we went into the break. We have a new format for this pick'em. We're not going to go with records, so my head isn't going to hurt quite as much when I'm trying to figure out what everybody's record and winning percentage is and all that kind of stuff. We are going to have a point system. So this week for Super Wildcard Weekend, we will be playing for 1 point, and the 1 point will continue for the divisional round. Then once we get to the championship, it'll be for 2 points, and then the Super Bowl will be worth 5 points. So there's a lot riding on this, and we already have our regular season champion DJ. If he's able to pull off regular season and postseason, I don't know. Jim, the network might have to put something together for that, because his performance has been that good. But this is going to be an interesting switch, and I'm excited to see what we have on tap for everybody this weekend. So we'll start with the first matchup. The Colts going into Buffalo and playing the Bills. First home game for Buffalo since is it 95? Is that the correct year? Yeah. Since 1995.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll start with DJ's pick. He's a Colts fan, so he went with the Indianapolis Colts to pull off the upset over the Buffalo Bills. And now we'll get to hear. I guess, Kelsey, do you want to give his reasoning behind that pick? Because I'm sure he's going to be the only one.
He might not be the only one, and I may have talked him into making this pick to begin with. When we did our preview show, he actually had zero faith in the Colts. I'll put him on blast for this. As a Colts fan, he had zero faith the Colts can do it. But basically what his reasoning is Jonathan Taylor goes off. The elder statesman, the experience of DeForest Buckner and Phillip Rivers shines through. The defense gets a couple takeaways early and destroys the run game that has not been going for Buffalo all season. So it's a potential there that he sees that they can win, but he says it's going to be close.
It would be something. And from what I saw from the Colts going down the stretch, I'm not quite sure if I agree with him. But I'm going to go ahead. I'll throw it to Zach first. Buffalo and Indianapolis. Do you see an upset happening, or do you think Josh Allen continues this crazy season that we've seen him have?
I agree with DJ. It's going to be close, but I'm a little skeptical for Indianapolis defeating Buffalo here. I mean, I understand you don't have a definitive home field advantage. 6,700 fans in the stands really doesn't, of course, add to anything with the crowd noise out there. Even although it would be helpful if the Mafia was out in full strength, honestly, and I wish that was the case for this year because they probably would really appreciate having their own home games for the first time in definitely 25ish years. But if I'm looking at this game in particular, you're catching the Bills at the wrong time, man. This is, you want to talk about a team with momentum, and one of the things you have to have going into the playoffs is momentum. Buffalo is the definition of momentum right now. When you can go against a division rival, score 56, and have roughly half of that go with a backup quarterback in the second half, where you don't have to start Josh Allen, who is playing pretty much at an MVP level. If it wasn't for Aaron Rodgers being there and consistently doing it all season, and having Josh Allen slip in 1 or 2 games this year, we'd be talking about Josh Allen or Aaron Rodgers, I think, at this point. You're running into a buzzsaw. I think that the Colts defense is very much capable of holding down the fort on the running end. I just don't know how effective it'll be when you have a, for the most part, healthy Bills offense. Now, obviously, they don't have their Cole Beasley is going to be the one question mark coming into this game, which I don't think he's going to be in. But you also get John Brown back and fully healthy for the first time, for one of the first times this year. And Stephon Diggs didn't lose a step at all at any point during the season. He is the receiving leader for a reason. He sparks that offense. I also should add to DJ's point on the run game. The Bills' run game has been on a hot streak actually as of the last few contests, whether it is weak competition or not. I'm taking the Bills in this. It's just been gradual improvement all season, and there's a reason why people think they're a dark horse, if not contender, for the Super Bowl right now.
Yeah, I agree with the fact that they're probably one of the dark horses that a lot of people are looking towards. And I think it comes down to being able to score 56 points in a game that you didn't have to win to secure your playoff position. They're making the most out of their opportunity that they have right now. Nico, I'll go to you with your pick next. Buffalo and Indianapolis. I know you hate Phillip Rivers, but do you think the Colts can pull off a victory?
15 years in this league by Phillip Rivers, and his playoff record is 5-6. There is no chance that the Colts go on the road to Buffalo and win. Phillip Rivers does not win playoff games on the road. He can only win playoff games technically at home. He is a terrible playoff quarterback. He has all these regular season statistics that he's going to be top 10 in all time, but he can't win in the playoffs. For that reason, I'm going the Bills big here. Like I said, the Bills are running to a buzzsaw. They may not have a lot of fans in the stadium, but there's still going to be some there, and it's a playoff game in Buffalo for the first time in 20-plus years, like Zach said. There's a different feel in Buffalo this year. The Colts, I was not a believer in because of Phillip Rivers for many reasons, but I will give them kudos. They have a great defense. Now they just need to move on from Phillip Rivers because Jonathan Taylor, and when you get Marlon back next year, the Colts are going to run away with this division. They could easily run away with this division next year if they figure out a stagnant or a quarterback that can throw to your own teammates. Because the Colts are going to rely way too heavily on Jonathan Taylor and relying heavily on a rookie running back to win you a playoff game on the road. That's not going to work. That doesn't work at all. So I'm going Bills here big. Josh Allen, he honestly, he should be number 2 in MVP voting behind Aaron Rodgers. That's a discussion for another time, but he should be at least top 3, if not number 2 for MVP voting. And Stephon Diggs proved everyone wrong that his career is not down the gutter, that he is still a top wide receiver in this game. So give me Bills here big, and they have a really, really good shot to make a lot of noise.
Jim, I'm going to you next. The question I'll pose this way: are the lights going to be a little bit too bright? Do you think that the Bills maybe come out and stumble early and give the Colts a little bit of hope?
Can they stumble out coming up early? Yeah, it's the postseason. You're finally home for a postseason game. But will they? No. There's 2 things you can guarantee in life, or 2 things you can guarantee in the football season, is that Phillip Rivers makes the playoffs. That's what he does. He makes the postseason. The other thing he does is great. He doesn't win in the postseason. It doesn't change if he's with the Colts, the Chargers, the Cincinnati Bengals, the New England Patriots. He's not winning the playoff game.
Hey, let's keep these above the belt here. No cheap shots.
Oh, okay, finally. Okay, Seattle Seahawks. You know what I mean. I'm just going on. Phillip Rivers has a tendency of outperforming his season performance to get the playoffs. Then it disappears. I remember a couple years ago with the Chargers, he made the playoffs as as a wild card team. They pull off an upset in the first round, and they thought they were going to go deep. And the next week they get blanketed by somebody. I think it was like the Steelers or something. But he's never been a guy that could take over games. The Colts have a squad. The Colts have a decent running game. Problem is that this Bills team has just each and every single week has adapted a new form of offense that can counter their defensive opponents. And for the Colts, if you give up 350 yards, 400 yards of offense against the Jacksonville Jaguars, you're not going to hold the Buffalo Bills anything lower than that. It's in Buffalo. It's going to be cold. 6,700 people are going to be there. There's going to be more broken tables than people in attendance in Buffalo. So give me the Bills as they celebrate and get the bad taste of the 1995 wildcard game defeat of the Jacksonville Jaguars out of their mouth and get their first postseason victory in 25 years. It's been a while.
It has been a long time. I think the last quarterback to actually win a playoff game for them might have been Doug Flutie.
Oh, shit. I was 6 years old. Holy fuck.
So, Kelsey, I'm going back to you. Did we convince you to change your pick,
Oh,
or
no.
are you sticking with the Colts?
I have the perfect point for all of your guys' points, actually. So you guys keep bringing up his record in the postseason. Do you guys know his record in the wild card round? Anybody? Anybody know how many times he's lost in the wild card round?
Pretty damn good in the wild card. That's the only thing.
Once. Phillip Rivers knows how to win one game, and that's all I'm asking him to win is one game, and that's the wild card game. All right, look. This team has the third best running back in the league, Jonathan Taylor. Finishes third in the rushing stats. Also a top 10 defense. Sure, you're going against Josh Allen, who I love Josh Allen. I love Stephon Diggs more than pretty much anybody else out there. I've been a Stephon Diggs fan since he came out of Maryland. Big fan of the guy. Love that he got to go to a quarterback like Josh Allen. But I think the lights are too bright for Josh Allen right now. I think he took this leap a year too early, and I think we're going to see him stutter in the playoffs in a way that we hadn't seen before, because now the expectations are on him. You mentioned this is the first playoff game since '95 in Buffalo. There's going to be the first 6,700 fans, although let's be honest, it's probably going to be closer to 3,400 because the other 3,000 are going to get too drunk and burn themselves on jumping through tables and not be able to actually make it into the game. But, still, that's going to be fans in the stands. That's pressure. And that's pressure that he hasn't had to face all season. And it's a different level in the playoffs. We talk about hitting your streak, and yeah, sure, they didn't have to score 56 points against the lowly Dolphins. But at the same point, yeah, they kind of did, because that's a division rival trying to take a playoff spot. So do you blame them? Not even a little bit. And it was a showing. Zach mentioned their run game, but let's be honest, out of the other 14 games of the season that they haven't had a run game, it's been averaging 30 yards a game, and most of 17 of those have come from Josh Allen. So there's potential here. If there's a single team in this entire playoff wild card, super wild card, whatever it is, to actually make noise, I think it's the Colts. I keep looking at this, and I want to prove myself wrong, but I keep thinking it's the Colts, and it's going to be this run game, and it's going to be the defense, because you look at the matchup, it's going to be Kenny Moore versus Stephon Diggs. Kenny Moore, most underrated corner in the league, hands down. I mean, the dude is a slot corner, but he's one of the most fantastic corners in the league. He's going to be matched up with Stephon Diggs because there's no Colt Beasley to take that slot position away. John Brown will be outside. Gabriel Davis will be there. You have Xavier Rhodes, who's been playing actually way better than he's played recently since, Rhodes closed 4 years ago, and he's been Rhodes open the last 3 years. And this, you look at him this year, and it's been completely different. He's back to Rhodes closed in a certain manner. And you also have Rocky Scene, who is not the most fantastic man coverage, but in a cover 2 type of situation, perfect. Lengthy corner, can range with anybody. Matches up perfectly with Gabriel Davis on the backside. So there's very many options here to cause problems for Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs, because there is a pass rush in Indy. DeForest Buckner is not a man to be counted out. Justin Houston has a vengeance on the league right now. He wants a title. The man moved away from Kansas City, and then they go to the championship game. You think he wants a title? Give that man a championship game. Like, he wants something. So, this is a team to not be overlooked. Everybody keeps writing him off. Jim, you definitely wrote their obituary before the game started right there. I'm looking at it, and I'm like, this team actually has a chance. This is the one team in the wild card round that I actually think has a real chance.
Look, Philip Rivers is 4-2 in the wild card weekend. That's the record. His last two.
Looking at him right now. He has not lost in the wild card round since 2009 to the Jets. That's the only time he has lost in the wild card round.
I lost to Mark Sanchez.
Well, in 2006 as well against.
That was in the divisional round.
Either way, the last two wild card weekends, he played the Bengals with Andy Dalton, trash. Sorry, Jimmy, and then Baltimore with Joe Flacco at the end of his career. So it's not like those teams were making no.
Doesn't matter who he plays. He doesn't lose in the wild card round. He lost one time.
I mean, he's playing the second best quarterback in the NFL right now.
Hey, that's fine, but he lost one time in the wild card round. Statistics matter, and when it comes down to it, a statistic to hang his hat on is I've only lost one time in a wild card round. And he will, and we all know Philip Rivers. Philip Rivers will hang his hat on the stupidest statistic in the world.
You know who's undefeated in the wild card round? Blake Bortles.
You know who's never won a game in the wild card round? Josh Allen.
But doesn't that does bring the point, though? If you're talking spotlight, he already had that experience last year. He blew a lead, so you already know how to lose a game.
Wasn't at home though, and he wasn't playing as a number 2 seed. There is a pressure to being the number 2 seed in the AFC and a potential MVP candidate.
Well, especially this year, you don't have a bye week.
You also were playing in an away game in a full stadium last year too,
and now you're playing at home with the first time all season. Well, you actually have fans.
I actually like your argument here. Quite frankly, the Colts defense is going to be the X factor in this entire contest. The only way you're going to be able to pull this off, in my opinion, is if you find a way to slow down Josh Allen. The Bills have regressed defensively, but not enough to where I could say they will blow the chance for the Bills. It's going to come down to how much that front seven holds up against that Bills attack. So I agree that if you want to say that's the X factor, that's the X factor.
And I'll add one more. Philip Rivers has to throw less than 25 times, and he has to throw at about a 70% clip, and then less than 25 times.
And then you're relying on a rookie running back, which is also.
I'll take him at 99 to have a fantastic game. I'll take that.
It's going to be interesting. We got the high-low island. It's not the Kelsey Island anymore because DJ's also on the Colts train.
I convinced him. I don't know how I did it, but I convinced him between Tuesday and now to pick the Colts because he was not picking them.
I would just be prepared if this does go the other way and the Bills end up coming out like a lot of people think. I would just be prepared for both of you to have to answer some questions.
It'll just be me. I'm okay with it.
I mean, DJ's team is the only team out of all of us to make, or actually, I take it back. Zach's team made the playoffs, but I mean,
did they?
Sorry,
the playoffs?
Sorry, but I mean, DJ's.
I don't count it. I don't count it.
So technically, DJ's Colts are the team we should be rooting for on the network because he's the only team left on the NFL UnHinged show.
It's gonna be. I think that's gonna be a fun matchup. Wildcard weekend's always something weird. Always happens. This game is liable to have some weird plays. Josh Allen might try and lateral the ball when he's getting tackled after he scrambles again like he did last year. But that's everybody except for the high-low guys are going with the Colts. So now let's move on to the Rams and Seahawks. And I'm sure we might get a little bit more spirited debate, or maybe I'm wrong on this one. It's another matchup just like the Cleveland-Pittsburgh game where we are having a divisional opponent meet each other for the third time. The only difference, or actually not even a difference, they split the season series. And I'm not sure if Jared Goff is playing, but John Wolford won the Rams a game last week. I'm going to start with Nico. Seahawks and Rams, how do you see this one playing out?
I have the Seahawks as my preseason favorite to win the NFC, and I'm going to go with the Seahawks here as well. It doesn't matter if Wolford is at quarterback. Doesn't matter if Jared Goff's at quarterback. This Rams, the offense, which was firing on all cylinders at the beginning, has gone stagnant, and they are heavily relying on the defense. And against the Seahawks, who are getting into form, they're getting into form. And Russell Wilson in the playoffs, he knows what he's doing. When he wants to flip the switch, he'll flip the switch because he has that Mamba mentality, and he is a man on a mission. And I believe he wants to get himself another ring. He only has one, and he takes that personally. He wants to solidify himself as one of the best quarterbacks to play this game, and only having one ring adds a thorn in the side. So give me Seahawks here big. The Rams lost to the Jets also 2 weeks back with Jared Goff. So like I said, doesn't matter if Jared Goff's a quarterback. That offense isn't going to be able to do anything. Give me Seahawks here big, and they go on a big run in playoffs.
I don't necessarily see a flaw in your argument, Jim. I'll go to you next. Seahawks and Rams. How do you see this one going?
I really want to pull for St. Louis, really St. Louis, Los Angeles here, but Russell Wilson postseason. Yeah, there's no 12th man, but they just don't lose in the playoffs, especially in their home stadium. That's been Seattle for the last 10 years. And John Warfield is a quarterback out here in Jacksonville. He's went to Wake Forest, but he's a local boy here. Down here, they're always like, oh, he's going to make he's going to, surprise. Yeah, he did very well last week, but really Seattle had nothing really to gain or lose last week, so you can't really judge his performance on that. But it's a wild card round, but for some odd reason, I don't want to take a shot at the NFC, but the NFC wildcard games, besides one, are not intriguing to me. I think they're going to be heavy one side of one opponent, and I think Seattle's going to take care of Los Angeles, and it honestly, it could be one-sided badly because of the Rams, just like what Nico said, the offense is gone. If it was a Rams from like 10 weeks ago, week 5, week 6 against Seattle, maybe. But right now, that Rams defense has to keep this game like within, I don't know, maybe a 20-point game, like a 2017 type of matchup, maybe less than that. I don't think they have the offense to compete with Seattle, and that's why I like Seattle in this one big.
Zach, Wolford put out a hot shot performance, and I'm sure that you'll appreciate the reference there. Do you think that he catches lightning twice, the former AAF quarterback?
Well, that's the thing. We don't even know if he's going to be the starter. Right now, as of how we're talking, Jared Goff's limited in practice and is being reported to have strong grip, decent velocity on the ball with that, of course, the surgery on his thumb. We're not sure who's even going to be in. Both quarterbacks have been interviewed saying, if I'm the starter, I'll step up and play. But there's no confirmed guy. But whoever's in my opinion, I think this is a defensive contest that goes to the Seattle Seahawks. I love divisional matchups, whether it's regular season, and I especially love them in the postseason in particular. And this duo has made some entertaining games this year. I really think it's going to come down to, who's going to be behind the center for LA. Whether it's Goff or Wolford, I would be fine with either one. But I will argue, though, Seattle has, for at least the final fourth of the season, turned around their defensive presence. They have been riding the defense. It's been less on Russell Wilson trying to handle everything. And maybe that's just saving some gas in the tank so that you can run the table with more of a Russell Wilson run offense. Because honestly, he still has all the weapons at his disposal. They've been getting healthier as the season's gone on. Chris Carson should be all set and ready to go. No need to worry about his status at this point. And of course, you got Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf there leading one of the best receiving corps in the NFL. It's a tall task, even for the Rams being one of the top 5 units in the NFL defensively. And add on the fact it's a divisional opponent. Your opponent's better when you're in a division. You play them twice a year. Add on a third time, their tendencies more often than not. It's harder to change a game plan or scheme in a different way. Whether it's Goff or Wolford, I think you'll be able as the Seattle Seahawks to take this one and start at least go to the divisional round. I don't know to say if they'll be able to make it to the NFC Championship game this year, but they should be able to handle the Rams. I just think that some of the juice from the earlier portions of the season that the Rams had is out of the gas tank right now.
Sean McVay, the way that offense has fallen apart for a guy who's considered an offensive guru is kind of incredible. Kelsey, I'll refresh your memory. A couple years ago in the wild card round, the Cowboys went into Seattle and upset the Seahawks. Do you happen to see another upset brewing in Seattle?
Hey, I made my peace with the Indy and Buffalo. I stand by what I said, and I think that's the only team that's going to make noise in this wild card round. And looking at the Seahawks game, it doesn't matter if Jared Goff starts or if it's John Wolford. To me, the matchup is purely down to Russell and his mind. Does he focus on DK Metcalf trying to go against Jalen and prove that he can outsmart Jalen Ramsey, or does he play the smart play and get Moore and Lockett involved, like I've been saying all season? If you guys remember back to when we were talking about Russell as the MVP, I said Lockett is the better receiver because he gets open better. Like he's able to get open on his own, whereas DK relies on the route to get open. And that's one thing that's always helped Russell is having Tyler Lockett. and you now add more in there as well. And what they're doing they just got him paid at the end of the season. He's ready to prove something. I think that's what this all comes down to. I don't care who starting quarterback is for the Rams. Honestly, you have a better offense with John Wolford. It was the first time in 5 weeks they lit it up offensively. And, Isaac Bruce even came out and said, yeah, I'd start John Wolford. I don't care if Jared Goff's good. It's the first time ever showing offense down the stretch. So, but yeah, this is purely going to come down to Russell and his own brain and whether he tries to be smarter. It's kind of like the Andy Reid thing, but for a quarterback. Like, don't try to outsmart yourself. Just make the smart throw. Just make the smart play. And if Russell can do that, it'll be just fine. I know he has Aaron Donald on the other side, the baddest man in football right now, but I don't care. Give me Russ and the Seahawks team. And for DJ, he also went with the Seahawks. For him, it's the defense is clicking. Russ is Russ. And even if Jared Goff starts, there's still going to be no Jared Goff. So that was his reasoning. So it pretty much sums it up. The Rams offense is stuttering, and Seahawks are kind of coming to a roll at the right time.
Yeah, Jamal Adams, even though he's not been a ball hawking safety, the fact that he has the sack record for a safety is kind of incredible. I think they're gonna really put the pressure on whoever plays quarterback, because I think they see the same flaws in the Rams offense that we all do. It's gonna be I don't know the defensive coordinator's name in Seattle, but he's just going to be dialing up every single blitz that he has, and he's going to bring Jamal Adams from linebacker, safety, maybe defensive end, could even be nose tackle at some point. That's all he wants to do. That's what he's going to try and get after this weekend. That's a clean sweep for the Seahawks for the Super Wildcard Weekend. And now finishing out, we have the 7-9 division champion Washington football team hosting Tampa Bay and Tom Brady with the Buccaneers. The Buccaneers have been, one of those weird teams, up and down. One week they look dominant, beating Green Bay and Lambeau, and then another week they come out and lose a game that they shouldn't have. Antonio Brown, who knows what that's going to add to this whole mix. But I'm going to go back to Jim, because since he's the former Brady with the Patriots, he's just a Brady fan now, basically taking up residence in all of Florida with Tampa and Jacksonville and everything like that. What do you see happening with this Buccaneers-Washington football team matchup?
I don't know. I think it's going to be a hard-fought game.
Freaking real.
It's
Is that a Gators jersey?
No. That's Brady and his Patriots jersey. But look at the rings. This man knows how to win playoff games. This man knows how to win championships. This is what Tampa Bay got. They got the greatest quarterback of all time, arguably. You can say Peyton Manning's in that conversation. It's a good debate, and I will agree on most of that debate. But Tampa Bay has ups and downs. And yes, the Patriots are not in the playoffs. Thank God. They need to change that organization, get rid of Cam, throw him to freaking, he wants $50 million. He can go F himself. But the Buccaneers got something that organization has needed for years, besides Jameis, besides Mike Lennon, Fitzpatrick, all the way down to Brad Johnson, when Brad Johnson won the Super Bowl with them a couple of, 2007, I think they won. If I'm right, I don't even know the Buccaneers history, but I don't care.
It was 2002.
2002. So they beat the Baltimore Ravens.
No, it was the Giants.
Kerry Collins and the Giants.
Yes.
But this team is back and forth. 1 week they are dominant. They beat the Packers. The next week they struggle against Atlanta, and then they have a fourth quarter come back against Atlanta. And by the way, if any Atlanta fans are listening to us, how does it feel choking again against Tom Brady? You were up 24-7 and you lost again. I feel bad for the city of Atlanta. Well, not really. The city of Atlanta doesn't know how to do an election either, so we're all fucked in this day and age. But the Buccaneers, for some reason, they have the team, in my opinion, if they click like they play the Packers, they can go deep in the playoffs. And when I mean deep, they can make it to Tampa Bay for the Super Bowl. But you got the Seahawks, you get the Packers, you got great challenges there. I just think that this game against Washington, Chase Young talking about, I want Tom Brady. Well, you're going to get Tom Brady. And you're 7-9. Alex Smith, yes, a great Cinderella story, a great story. They don't have enough to stay in this game. Their defense, which is good, and to beat Tom Brady, you must pressure him up the middle. He has a very hard time in his career of dealing with pressure up in his face. In NFL, any quarterback is. Peyton Manning had the same problem. Mark Brunell had this problem. Brett Favre had this problem. When the pressure comes up the middle, they panic, they run. And if you don't have a mobile quarterback, you get sacked. We've seen it ever. Even Jay Cutler up in there in Chicago is notorious for doing this a lot. But he gets sacked and throws interceptions. That's your Jay Cutler for Chicago. But this game right here, the wild card game, I was really hoping it was Washington would play somebody else and Brady was playing somebody else. But I told Carlos this the other day. I love the story, man. You guys have battled adversity. 2020 is usually the 2020 year can be crammed into the Washington football team's season. But I think that ends this today on Saturday night. It's going to be prime time. NBC is going to be there. Chris Collinsworth's going to get all of his Tom Brady into him that night. Yes, I even made it a little creepy right there. But as Patriots fans, this is the first time in so long that we don't have to worry about a damn playoff game. We actually get to enjoy watching the playoffs, and we get to see Mr. Franchise, the GOAT, the greatest all time. 6 rings, Tom Brady played for the Buccaneers. So good luck, Bucks. They'll beat the Redskins. Messed up. Washington Football Club, wherever hell your name is this year. But yeah, that's my pick, even though my profile picture says who I pick. So yeah.
Well, when we make something awkward on the far end of the bench, we like to say pause so that we know that it's not meant to be awkward. But also when I was talking about this game, I saw the Cinderella story coming to an end. And the way I put it was Alex Smith's not going to look good in a tattered dress and a pumpkin. So I kind of had the same feeling. Nico, I'm going to go to you because if you stuck with what you did on our show, this is going to be a fun little
Here
debate.
we go. 10 years and 1 day to the day of this game. Do you all know what happened? The last 7-9 football team to win a playoff game. The Seattle Seahawks took down Drew Brees and the New Orleans Saints. And you know what? I'm going with the Cinderella story. I'm taking the Washington football team. I don't love it, but I hate Tom Brady, and I'm going to go with the Washington football team. Listen to this. The Bucks don't have LaShawn McCoy. They haven't really found an identity on offense. They don't know if they should hand it off to Ronald Jones or if they should just throw it up to Mike Evans and Chris Godwin every time. And then you have Gronk on the field who demands the ball too. And then Mike Evans, he's questionable, but I mean, unless he's dead, he's going to be playing. So I'm not going to take him out of the equation. He's more than likely going to play. But this is the biggest matchup of this game is going to be Chase Young versus Tristan Wirfs. If Chase Young can kick the shit out of Tristan Wirfs, I think the Washington football team win this game. And for that reason, I'm going with that. The Buccaneers offensive line has struggled recently, and if they're relying on Tristan Wirfs to take control of Chase Young, I don't know if I trust that. I'm going to go Chase Young gets the quarterback. I can't wait for the 30 for 30 to come out in about 3 years of this Washington team, of how they don't have a team name, and the 30 for 30 is going to be called the football team or something stupid like that. And how they had the greatest comeback of all time in Alex Smith. They had a coach had played half the season with cancer and then beat it. And then you make the playoffs as a 7-9 football team when the other team that you played in week 17 tanked. This is going to continue for one more week. Washington football team is going to take down Tom Brady. The Bucs have no idea what they're doing offensively. Their defense, if they want to show up, they are a great defense. But that's if. As if Shaq Barrett wants to play. That's if Antoine Winfield shows how good he is. That's if those corners can slow down Terry McLaurin. And they don't have Carlton Davis out too. He's out as well. Devin White also out. There's your starting middle linebacker. In my opinion, this is the Cinderella story of all Cinderella stories, and I'm going to keep going with it. Tom Brady, you have the weapons on offense, but you have no idea what to do with all of them. So I'm going with the Washington football team to continue and make this 30 for 30 story even better.
I appreciate you bringing up some offensive line play as the key to this game. I kind of mentioned that as well. Tristan Wirfs doesn't do well against good pass rushers, and Chase Young's a really, really good pass rusher. And then even if Montez Sweat lines up over the top of him too, he's proven that he's just as good as advertised when he was coming out of college as well. Zach, I'm going to you next. Do you agree with Nico? Do you think the Cinderella story continues and Disney's going to buy the rights to this story here and make a movie about it? Or do you see Tampa Bay, proving that Washington should have never been here?
I mean, they can buy rights to the regular season story if they want, because I don't really see it going beyond this wild card matchup. And you know what, Chase Young, I give him, he's got some balls to say that he's going to be all day going after Tom Brady. I understand that the Bucs have had some struggles against top tier pass rushers, and this will be a really interesting test of some of the top prospects from this year's draft. If you're talking about Tristan Wirfs versus Chase Young, quite a unique tale or storyline that you're going to have for this contest. However, one thing I will say is that the Bucs can diversify. They don't have to rely on Tom Brady having to drop back. They got Ronald Jones, who took a breakout season this year, mind you. They have that little piece of in their pocket if they want, which, by the way, that plays into the weakness of the Washington football team and their defense. One of the best units in the NFL, by the way, actually 4th ranked, surprisingly, for the record. That is the strength of this team. However, if we look for weaknesses, we look for chinks in their armor, it is the run game. They are middle of the pack. You want to rely on Ronald Jones to open up the passing game. That is what you could do. That will also alleviate Chase Young in any case. And I would say that is what you're going to have to lean on, I think, for the most. And they have this season. Tom Brady, he has sometimes had to lean on the run game in the past with the New England Patriots. He has done it this year with the Bucs. I will say that is the way you're going to deflect anything that could be pressure for the Washington football team. And also for one thing, Washington, yeah, it was a rough game last week. Maybe they have some success and, have a more healthy Antonio Gibson, a more healthy Terry McLaurin after another week. But you have Shaquille Barrett coming back on the opposite side of the ball for a Tampa defense that is one of the best at rushing the passer this year. Alex Smith is a game manager. I love the story, but he is not as explosive as what Tom Brady is, surprisingly at his age too. This is probably the end of the road. As much as I've loved the season for the football team, I do not see this going beyond this wildcard weekend. If Washington can shut the run down and force it to where they are constantly pressuring Brady, which has basically been the only key piece of stopping any Brady team ever in his time in the NFL, then this is the Bucs game to lose, in my opinion. Give me the Bucs in this contest, but love the story of the season. We're going to be talking about this one no matter what happens come this week, 4 years to come.
Kelsey, does DJ have Nico staying on the island, or does he think that Washington's going to be able to pull the upset off?
Yeah, Nico's riding his own island over there. We like to call it Trash Mountain in Iowa. This is what we call it here. But yeah, sorry, but you're all by yourself there. His reckoning is Brady in the Hall of Fame forecast. Plus, Chase Young decided he wanted to open his big fat mouth and piss off Tom Brady. One thing you probably don't want to do. I don't blame him for that theory. It kind of plays into my whole thing. But before I do that, 2 things. One, if you tuned in for NFL analysis and saw that 6 Shades of Brady over there from Jim, I'm sorry. We do apologize. We didn't want mommy porn on the show, but Jim, he rides it well. So
No pause.
No, it's exactly what I said.
Oh, no.
And also, the last time Buccaneers won a championship was against the Oakland Raiders.
There it
2002. Not either of whatever I heard before.
Not the Giants. My bad. I was thinking of the Ravens. Once I said shit, I was like, shit, that's the Ravens and fucking Giants.
Yeah, no, it's 2000. So yeah. Anyways, for me, I have the Bucs winning. And actually, I'm kind of with Zach on this one. Ronald Jones and Leonard Fournette have been a very, very helpful unit for him at different times in this season. It's not been perfect, a perfect combination by any means, but Ronald Jones has had his career year this year and had it's what you want from him, from a young guy. And if anybody plays Madden with him, you know how much of a pain in the ass he is to try to tackle. He's just as good as in real life as he is in Madden. Leonard Fournette, the dude's a bulldozer. He does what he does. Don't ask him to run outside, which is what were trying to do early on too much. Just have him run right up the middle. But at the end of the season right here, they had everybody flying on full go. And, Antonio Brown got paid. He's happy. Lord knows he's ready to catch touchdowns against the 3rd string corner for Washington, whoever his name is. I can't even name the number 1 starter for Washington, so I don't have any hope of naming the number 3 corner. But yeah, you sit here and look at it, and it doesn't matter. It's probably going to be Scotty Miller that goes off for the receiving core and decides he gets 100 yards and 2 touchdowns. This Bucs team is too much. And yeah, honestly, Nico made a good point with Tristan Wirfs versus Chase Young. I 100% agree that's going to be a matchup. But here's the problem. You pissed off Tom Brady, Chase Young. I don't care what they do. Chase Young is not going to get a sack on Tom Brady in this game because Tom Brady's too damn smart. He can recognize coverage. He can bring over Gronk. He can bring over whatever player he wants to chip Chase Young and make Chase Young's day a living hell. And one thing Chase Young proved in college and has proved early in his career, if you chip him and 2 to 3 people touch him per play, he will not make a play. And I just mean touch him. I do mean just like a chip and another chip and then a lineman engages. He will not make a play. And it's happened all season. When they try to let him solo, then that's where there's issues. And, you mentioned Montez Sweat. Mm-hmm. He's a fantastic player, but on the flip side, he goes up against Ali Marpet. I'm sorry, you're not beating Ali Marpet.
The way to beat the Tom Brady for the Skins or the football team, they have to adapt the same defensive approach like the Denver Broncos did when the Broncos won the Super Bowl. They had 2 defensive ends. If you have one dominant defensive end one side, Tom Brady is just going to throw quick passes on there to completely eliminate you as an individual. So you might be 4-3, but he'll just – there you go, Chase Young. He's looking at a 3-3. Now, if you have 2 defensive linemen, another defensive end, confused like that defense that Broncos had that year was completely, like, epic. That was the defense to shut down Tom Brady. But the Washington does not have that defense. And Chase Young – you chanting that name. We want Tom. We want Tom. Why are you calling out Tom? He's been up and down all year. He really hasn't had anything to fight for. Really, strive him. You gave him something to get ready for, and you don't call out one of the best players to ever play the game.
I will say I would have had more confidence in the football team if this was Ryan Kerrigan in his prime, because then you would have had both sides. But this is Kerrigan at the back end of his career, which is why you now have Chase Young having to carry that load.
Ryan Kerrigan's fantastic in his own right. I'm not trying to take anything away, but he's not the pass rusher extraordinaire.
That's
teaming
exactly
up with Brian Arakpo coming out of college, like that fearsome duo. He's very much, honestly, in my opinion, he's a better kind of run defense guy now. He reads and assesses plays a lot better, but he'll be an impact in the run game, but I don't think he's going to affect anything passing wise. And really, I think Chase Young cooked his goose right here. I mean, dude, don't tell Tom Brady we all know you're coming after him. Don't be stupid and give him locker room material. Did we not just see what happens with Ohio State and Clemson? We were about to see what happens with Alabama and Ohio State when you do it. I mean, Tom Brady is not a guy you give bulletin board material to.
To argue Kelsey's point, are we even sure Leonard Fournette is playing? Because remember the healthy scratch from not too long ago. I mean, they should rely heavily on Ronald Jones because he has played really well. If they start giving the ball away from him, then that's their own nail in the coffin. But I mean, I don't even know if Leonard Fournette's going to be a factor in this game.
Honestly, he might not even need to.
Yeah,
there's plenty of factors that go into all these. A lot of good spirited debate. We're going to go ahead and cut it off here for the Saturday show. So let's give a chance for everybody to plug. If you're listening to this on Saturday, be sure to tune in the following day, at least for the last part of the show, to hear our picks for Sunday. But Zach, where can they find you on the network and your podcasts?
Well, you can find me on either Gridiron Gallery or Beyond the Press Box. Gridiron Gallery releases on Fridays at 11 a.m. And then you also got Beyond the Press Box, which releases also around the similar time frame. Meanwhile, you also can find me here, and you can find me on social media at ZK Podcast in particular if you're looking for Gridiron Gallery. Plenty of football discussion, folks.
Yeah, lots of good football to talk, and it's not just NFL, it's CFL, everything that's coming up for the offseason as well. Nico, go ahead and tell them where they can find our podcast.
Of course, Jimmy and I are the Far End of the Bench podcast. We're located in Denver, Colorado. We are on the Unhinged Network at 11 o'clock Mountain Standard Time, which is 1 o'clock Eastern. Our episodes come out Spotify, Apple directly after. You can catch the YouTube show. You can catch this YouTube video. So if you're listening right now on Saturday or on Saturday, go check it out on Sunday when the YouTube video, the full video comes out. Go like us, subscribe us there, man. We're at FVOTB Pod on Instagram and Twitter. We're starting to do color casts as well, so we're going to be commentating the Monday night national title game that we just talked about a little bit. So we'll be doing that on color cast. Be sure to download the app on iPhones, not Androids right now, but you can listen to us on there. We're going to continue putting out great content of the year. We were the 2020 Unhinged Podcast of the Year for a reason. And we're going to keep coming into 2021 with a stride and keep putting out great things for everyone to listen to.
Definitely. Kelsey, High Low Sports, where can they find you and DJ?
It makes me cringe every time Nico does that. It hasn't gotten
Don't worry, you'll hear
I
it.
haven't gotten used to it yet.
You'll hear it every single time.
Can't wait till the 2021 year. But anyways, yeah, you can hear DJ and I on. God, I almost said fire under the bench. You can't hear us there yet. We haven't taken over their show yet.
He wants to be on. He wants to be on our show.
Give us time. Hey, I've given boost to every show I've been on. Jim can attest to that. But hey, look, High Low Sports, high_low_sports. So you can find us on Twitter. HighLowSportsPodcast.com is our website where you can catch all our episodes on re-airs, on Anchor, through our RSS feed there. Also, stay tuned to that webpage. We do have a lot of new things working in. Got a lot of cool interviews coming up planned that might kind of blow some people away. And, we had some great talks today. And I'm really excited for what 2021 has to bring for us, guys. And we just hope you guys just check us out. Stay tuned. We just like to have a lot of fun. So
there you go. Jim, where can they find your show? And then how can they follow the network?
You can find my show at J-Show. And you can follow the network at Network UnHinged. You can follow my co-host at Wrestling Movie G. We have a new time start for our show. We're no longer 9 a.m.s on Mondays and Fridays. We're going to be high noons on Mondays and Fridays. And on Wednesday, we're going to give you some nighttime action. We will start our show at 4 p.m. on Wednesday. So that's noon on Monday and Fridays and 4 p.m. on Wednesday.
Don't forget, also go check out our brother and sister shows in 2 for Chirping and 3 in the Key. The 2 for Chirping episode just came out. You can hear, if you go to the website, you can check out when those times are. I'm not exactly sure when the times are, but you can go check out both those shows because a lot of us here are on both those shows, and those are really, really good ones coming out.
Yeah, fantastic first showing for you guys, by the way. Chirping. That was
I appreciate it. It was a lot of fun. Also, I wanted to mention that if you're listening to this on Saturday, tune in Saturday night. Jim, what time is Film Room Review, the first episode debuting?
8 p.m. Saturday night or 8 p.m. tonight.
8 p.m. Eastern, Saturday night. Tune in. Nico, Kelsey, Jim, and I got together, talked some movies. It's going to be normally me and Jim's co-host, Carlos, the wrestling movie guy. But we got a bunch of fill-ins, and you can catch that show. If you don't catch it this Saturday, you can catch it next Saturday, or the following Saturday. It gets replayed every week throughout the month, and we have new episodes every month. So with that, this has been NFL Unhinged Super Wildcard Weekend Saturday edition, and be sure, like we said, tune in Sunday as well for our picks for those games. Thank you guys for listening. Follow the network at Network Unhinged, unhingedsn.airtime.pro, and hopefully everybody has a good weekend.
What's up, benchwarmers of the Unhinged Sports Network? Jimmy Pilato, Nico Bryant, and we got some more things to talk to you about because, yes, you can't get anything for Christmas at this point on Fanatics, but it doesn't mean that it's too late to go get your favorite sports fan a new thing to add to his collection. Whatever you want, jerseys, shirts, coasters. I'm pretty sure I saw stickers on there. You can still get anything through the link in our bio for Fanatics. It helps out the Unhinged Sports Network as a whole.
There's a lot of good stuff. I mean, the SEC championship gear, ACC championship gear, and by this time, you'll probably still be listening to, you'll maybe see national championship gear, Rose Bowl gear, whatever it may be. Anything you want, literally anything. And you can find it on Fanatics, man. Use the link. Make sure to hit the link in our link tree that's in all of our bios, man, because all that stuff is going to be fantastic. Gotta use the link, though. Have to use the link.
At FEOTB Pod, all social medias. Go get you some new stuff from Fanatics. Help out the Unhinged Sports Network. Thanks, guys.
Hey, we're back with NFL Unhinged. Wow, that was bad. A more professional podcaster might restart, but I'm going to let you hear my screw ups. We mentioned it. If you listened to our show yesterday, we did the Saturday picks. We realized we were going a little bit long. So now if you're listening to the Sunday morning, we no pause on that one, Jim. We went a little bit long. Now we are going to go through the Sunday games. We have some good matchups, 2 AFC and 1 NFC. So flip-flop from Saturday's games. And we are going to start with the Ravens and Titans. So, Kelsey, I'll go to you since you have DJ's picks. What does DJ see happening in what has turned into a hell of a grudge match since last year's divisional round?
Yeah, this game is something to look forward to, honestly. Before we get to that, unfiltered, unhinged is what we are. So, love starting it out with that. How real we are as people. But getting to the game, this Ravens-Titans game, DJ, he started out, he's like, you know what? I can't give the Titans any credit. He's going the Ravens. He's finally get their revenge. Lamar doesn't press, and he actually lets the game come to him. And J.K. Dobbins outrushes Derrick Henry, and the Ravens defense comes alive for this one. That's his quote. I don't know if you're watching this on YouTube, you saw my hesitation when when I read the Derrick Henry line. This is the first time reading it. I can't say I disagree, but I think the Derrick Henry line might be a little too far for that. But for me, I'm also going with the Ravens. To me, I just think they're coming to a head at the right time. I don't know if J.K. Dobbins is going to outrush Derrick Henry because, well, that man's on a mission to literally kill everybody in his way. And you know what? He might just do that. But this defense for the Ravens has been fantastic. And Ryan Tannehill, as much as I think he's done well this year, done exceedingly well, he's still an ex-receiver throwing the ball, and you sometimes see it with him that he doesn't always make the right decision when he's throwing it up there. Thankfully, he has somebody by the name of A.J. Brown to go up and get it and just snag it. So be it. But, give me the Ravens on this one as well. But I'm not going to go as far to say J.K. Dobbins outrushes Derrick Henry. I'll stop myself.
I kind of wish DJ was on to be able to defend that take. I don't necessarily agree with that one either. Nico, I'm going to you because we've mentioned it a ton on our show. We're closeted Titans fans. We love Will Compton. We love Taylor Lewan. Bussin' with the boys. Shout out Bussin' with the boys. But what do you see happening with this game? Because this is an intriguing matchup. The Ravens are one of those teams you probably don't want to see moving forward in the playoffs.
In my opinion, I think this is going to be the game of super wild card, whatever showdown it is. I think this is the game of the week. I think this is going to be a fantastic matchup. I picked the Titans on Monday when we recorded. I'm going to pick the Titans again here. I am worried, very worried, because like we said, those revenge games come back to bite people in the ass. But I see the Titans controlling the game, because if there's a defense, the Titans defense has not been very good lately. But if there's a coach that I trust to get his defense to get a good game plan around a mobile quarterback, it's Mike Vrabel. I think that game plan last year was fantastic. They came into the game like, we're going to punch you in the mouth by running the ball, and we're going to force Lamar Jackson to throw the ball. I think we see a similar situation. Lamar has finally started using his weapons more in Marquise Brown and Mark Andrews and everything, but if the Titans focus on defensive heavy run stopping, I think the Titans win this game easily. The Titans Ryan Tannehill has done a much better job than I thought. I was ready for people to call his head, and he needs to be replaced, but he has done a very good job. And A.J. Brown, like we said, like Kelsey said, A.J. Brown has had one of the most underrated seasons by a receiver. If it wasn't for Stephon Diggs and some of these other guys, we could be talking about him as one of the best receivers in the game. So I'm picking Titans here. I do like them being at home as well, but it's going to be a toss-up game. So I'm going to go Titans here. It's going to be 30-28 game, or maybe 30-27 on a game-winning field goal.
I definitely agree that it's probably one of the best matchups of the weekend. Zach, people seem to figure Lamar Jackson out once he gets to the playoffs. We haven't seen him play a really good game in the postseason. Do you think he finally shakes that monkey off his back? Do you think when he took that deuce against Cleveland, maybe it got it all out of his system?
Well, I think he does get this monkey off his back for this one. I would say, you're entering into a game that I think fits the perfect timing for the Ravens right now, as well as the opponent. Here's the thing with the Titans. They are the embodiment of what a glass cannon is. Very powerful, but defensively, that is a unit that you can shred very easily. It has not been a top-tier defensive unit. Surprisingly, with Mike Vrabel being the head coach that he is coming from that side of the ball, they have been one of the hottest offenses in the NFL. It's what keeps them in games. They outrun opponents. And if you want to talk about the Baltimore Ravens, just look back at your Week 11 contest that you lost in overtime. Simply put it, shut the door. They didn't shut the door in that contest. They were up 21-10. They had everything in front of them, which if you want to beat the Titans, you have to get in front and stay in front, and you just have to keep scoring. That's the only way you can beat this team. They basically ran out of gas, it seemed, going into the third quarter and didn't recover. Now, this is a Baltimore team that has gone through hell and back with COVID, fully healthy now, and on the right momentum swing. This is the second team in the NFL, I would say, that has the most momentum right now, besides the Buffalo Bills, if I were to pick and make a list right at this moment. And as I've said on previous episodes of this show, I usually go for the more balanced options if I am going for a team. Baltimore right now has everything cooking in the right portions of their game, and Lamar Jackson's looked like an MVP again. If you add that into a equation where Tennessee has to find out what side of the ball they have to defend, and they're terrible at both, mind you, They just have to outrun Tennessee's offense, which it's been proven if you can slow down Derrick Henry, if you can get him at the point of contact and just get him to slow down and force Tannehill to have to be the hero, Tannehill can deliver some passes, but he is not the guy that will deliver you a win every time. You have to have a balanced offense for Tennessee. And I think this is just the perfect storm for Baltimore to finally allow Lamar Jackson to say, I got my first playoff victory. Give it a close game, though. I don't think it'll be an overtime contest like week 11, but I'm going to say, like Nico, it might come down to a Justin Tucker field goal.
Jim, you're the last one for this game. Vrabel and Harbaugh really kind of rekindled this rivalry from that week 11 matchup. No handshake after the game. Harbaugh's pretty upset with what Vrabel was doing in that matchup. What do you see? Do you think that the Ravens can win this revenge game, or do you think the Titans maybe pull out a victory here?
Well, there's many things I can discuss about the Tennessee Titans, my hatred towards that city, my hatred towards that state, and the hatred towards that freaking running back they have that just kicks everyone's ass. But Zach did bring up a good point. Baltimore is actually performing way better than they were going into playoffs last year. They're getting things together. Lamar Jackson actually looks like a decent quarterback. He can throw some passes. But their Achilles heel is a team that runs the football like the Tennessee Titans, a power football team. Ryan Tannehill, you don't need him to win the game for you. You need him to put you in place where if you need him to throw, 22 for 28 for 200 some yards, he's that type of quarterback. But if, Henry's not having 250, 3 touchdowns, we might have an issue here. But for the Ravens, they need to find a way to up-tempo this game as much as possible, keep Tennessee unbalanced, and pretty much adapt what Deshaun Watson did down in Houston last week and just hit quick out routes on Tennessee's defense and nickel a dime down the field. Something that I noticed from the Week 11 matchup that Baltimore did not do. They kept handing off the ball, the play action reads, trying to do swing jet sweeps, but no quick out routes. They were always trying to throw deep and trying to make up RPO plays with Lamar Jackson. But unfortunately, I remember this game. The Music City Miracle. The Buffalo Bills got robbed. And that was in 1999 where the Tennessee Titans got lucky. But it was so sweet when they lost on the 2-yard line to Kurt Warner and the St. Louis Rams. There's no Music City Miracle here because next week Lamar Jackson will be playing in the AFC divisional round.
The swerve, I swear.
I didn't know where you were going the entire time. I saw one way and you went the other, and then you went the other again.
Yeah, going with the most infamous illegal forward pass there ever was in football.
3-yard pass. Oh, it was good. Bullshit. That's 3 yards, man.
I don't know.
Did that play the play in the Super Bowl for Kevin Dyson? Do you think that ruined his career for what it was? He had a great career up until that point, but everybody forgets him.
I don't know. I think he'd probably rather not be remembered if he was going to be remembered for that play.
That Super Bowl should have been the Jaguars and Rams. So,
yeah, fair enough.
There's a lot of faith in Lamar Jackson to win his first playoff game. A lot more faith than I thought there was going to be. Nico is the sole member of Titans Island, so he's the only one hanging out.
The weather's supposed to be perfect, by the way. That's why I'm picking Baltimore.
There you go. That could be another factor. The last 2 times, I mean, last year wasn't that, but Lamar's first playoff game in the wild card round, it was pretty windy, and that was terrible because he didn't know how to pass back in his rookie season. Next game, Bears and Saints. Zach, I'm starting with you because it's your team. It's also the Nickelodeon broadcast. So are you going to be kind of saving yourself some pain by watching it with SpongeBob and Patrick on commentary?
I'm generally curious. I actually might tune in to just see what this is like, just to get a vibe or the atmosphere, insanity, if you will. I'm not enthused about this game. This is the one that's the lowest on the totem pole for me, even lower than the Bucs versus the Washington football team. It could be also that I'm adding fan bias into this just because, they're in, but it took circumstances and basically a fan base to accept what we are and just kind of lower the bar for ourselves to be okay with this. I think the Bears options here are pretty simple. You have to play keep away if you want to win this contest. Same as they tried to do against Aaron Rodgers last week in week 17, except the problem is the Saints are the healthiest they've been on offense. They also have transformed that team to be defensively minded first. And Alvin Kamara sounds like he's going to be playing in this contest, according to some of his tweets. I don't have much confidence. Also, Michael Thomas is going to be playing again. He took the week off last week. He's back and going to be healthy and full go. Emmanuel Sanders is, of course, been a forgotten element on that offense too. And again, I don't have faith in Mitch Trubisky if they get behind. Same just with any of that in particular. If it runs through David Montgomery and if they can keep it in front of him and basically control the clock somehow, cool. But no, I don't have faith. Give me this as a Saints win. I'll say it like I've said on other podcasts. It's a 28-17 victory for the Saints. Chicago, keep it close, but come by the end of the second quarter, it'll be too little too late, and this will probably just go the way I'm projecting it. And that's all she wrote. I don't have much to say beyond that. It'll be a fitting end to what I consider a disappointing season. Some say otherwise because of the playoff. I think it's a disappointing end of the year, though.
Yeah, I would agree that it's probably, unless the Bears go on some sort of magical run, this season's pretty much a wash at this point. That's what 8-8 gives you. Kelsey, I'm going to you next for this game. Give me your pick, and then I'll let you give DJ's thoughts on this game as well.
All right, so for me, I'm going with the Saints on this one because Alvin Kamara does get cleared Saturday. Whether he passes a test or not, it's been the 7-day period, and so he's cleared for playing on Sunday morning in this Nickelodeon game that I swear there better be some kind of animation somewhere at some point in time that the football turns into a mushroom, or I don't know what they're going to do, but I'm expecting some fun stuff. It's going to be goofy, and it's fitting because this might be, as Zach said, I'm sorry, Zach, but this might be the most boring game of the weekend at the end of the day, because I do think the Saints are kind of going to walk away with this. You get the whole running back core. Mike Thomas comes back. Drew Brees is playing for something. People rally around Drew Brees somehow, even though he says some stupid shit. I don't get why he does it, but people can rally around him. So it doesn't surprise me that Drew Brees and this offense just goes on a rampage, and their defense is nothing to slouch at. They have picked it up late in the season and have been playing very well. And on the flip side, if the Bears are going to have a chance, their defense is going to have to find some hands. So things they've been missing all season long. Even last season, for that matter, Kyle Fuller dropped 20 picks, and you look at it and you're just like, catch something. One or two balls. If they catch one or two different picks, it changes their season from 8-8 to 10-6. It could be done. It's a team that has a potential. It's not just on Mitch Trubisky, but you hit the nail on the head. It's got to go through David Montgomery and continue to do what you do with Mitch, which is get him out of the pocket, moving, letting his feet dictate how he plays. When he's on the run, he's one of the better quarterbacks in the league. And as long as you don't make him sit in the pocket and try to be a Nick Foles pocket passer, he's terrible at that. Don't try to turn him into that. Let him roll. Let David Montgomery run the ball. And the Bears might have a chance. Their defense is nothing to slouch about as long as they can catch. But if they can't catch anything like they have in all season, this is a very easy Saints victory.
DJ's also going with the Saints as well.
Yeah. So his reasoning, obviously, Mike Thomas is back. Breeze is rested, and the D harasses Mitch Trubisky. That's his logic, which is very safe, easy, uncomplicated.
Short to the point.
Yeah. Short and to the point. That's exactly what I was about to say. Jim, I'm going to you next. Bears Saints, upset or not?
This is the Nickelodeon game, right?
This is the Nickelodeon game.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
So, guess who lives in the SpongeBob? I can't do it. I can't. I was gonna say, guess who lives in the SpongeBob under the sea? Chicago Bear fans. Guess what team's gonna lose in this week? Chicago Bears. That's it. Yeah, I'm terrible. I just know SpongeBob is funny. That I had it all in my mind. I'll fuck that shit up already.
Yesterday was six Shades of Brady, and today it's SpongeBob SquarePants theme song here. Well, I don't know what to do with you today, Jim.
Well, I should have had it on the script, but the savior of the Chicago Bears retired 3 years ago, and he will forever be we should have a plaque somewhere in one of our houses of Jay Cutler.
Can you leave me alone with this? I swear.
Like right here, it just says Jay Cutler, official alumni of NFL UnHinged.
I'm gonna be in the.
And I guarantee you, when I go to the Two and Chirping, I'll have a plaque behind me. Goes forever, forever my buddy, Tuukka Rask, because I can't stand him. He's an ass to me. But anyways, the Saints, in my opinion, are superior in every way in the game. Problem is the Bears. I'm not going to bash your Bears, Zach. You're a good guy, but when I look at the Bears, I go, I really want to see the Bears versus Washington because Washington would beat the Bears. The Bears are not any good. They backed themselves into the postseason. Like what's strange is when they made the postseason, you tweeted it out. You're like, "Oh, we made the postseason." Okay. And I felt that. I felt that the city of Chicago's like, "We made the postseason? Oh fuck, we gotta watch a postseason game." Like they're not excited like other cities in the NFL are. Chicago's like, damn, we just ruined our franchise for another 3 years because we make the damn postseason.
I cannot tell you enough how many media personnel in the city of Chicago have made the exception to say, well, the playoffs, that's a success. 2 years ago, and I will say this again, 12-4, you won the North. That should be your standard. If you are lowering your bar to be a new seed in the postseason with an 8-8 record, then you don't have your priorities straight and you're wasting your time being a media personnel in Chicago. Please find a different area of the country to cover a football team. That is ridiculous that you're going to lower your bar that fast. Shame on you.
They should go to Detroit.
I think we found a replacement for one of those Chicago personnel.
Mic drop. I've never seen one. Jesus.
But Zach, am I correct? Your Chicago, when you guys made the playoffs on your Twitter feed, not just yours, but every fan that I've seen on Twitter, like, oh fuck, we got a playoff game. Because they know that making the playoffs, you screw yourself in the drafts. You screwed yourself out, possibly out of a quarterback. Hopefully, you get the Zach Wilson out of Chicago or out of BYU, but he may not drop to you guys. But when I saw the Bears win, I'm like, what are you guys doing? You're setting your franchise back 2 to 3 years, even though you made the postseason. But you're paired up against the New Orleans Saints. You're going to get the Bears. Unfortunately, I think that's going to be the main reason. Your guys are going to get Bears by the Saints. But I feel bad for Chicago, and it's just I don't have hatred for the city. Maybe because of Jordan's dominance back in the 90s, but that's a different reason, a different sport.
He's a goat.
But yeah, he is a goat too. So if I can be the 6 shades of Brady, and I can pay tribute to the goat himself. And
there's a difference between the 6 shades of Brady and about Michael Jordan.
Yeah,
there was some objects that should never be involved in a conversation about sports that you were using.
But I've never seen out of the whole playoff expansion. Washington was excited when they made the playoffs. Chicago made the playoffs. Are like, oh fuck. And that just tells you the narrative that the fans are in Chicago. And I feel like they're not excited for the playoff game. And I guarantee there are some fans that are out there. But real Bears fans like Zach, which you're the one of many, show the real passion of your team. You don't care that you're in the playoffs because you know that you're setting yourself back maybe 2 to 3 seasons because you're wasting away draft picks because you decided to make the 8th seed, but the 7th seed.
Mm-hmm.
And
it doesn't even matter as well that the NFC was weaker this year because I've heard that argument too. Well, the NFC is weaker, so of course they got in. If this was any other year where the NFL decided they didn't want to add on an extra game to make a little extra chump change from the wild card, this would be 2 straight years without a playoff. So that's another argument. They wouldn't have made it. The NFL helped you and you lost to your rival, which you are outclassed by year in and year out, to say this was a success.
Well, if you were in the AFC, you're 3 games out.
Yeah, no kidding.
So
that's the only thank God I can give them. Thank God we've been in the NFC since our inception in 1920.
I just feel I don't bash Chicago. I have no natural rival with them. I'm for a Red Sox fan for so many years. We share the same pain with the Cubs fans in Chicago. The years of frustration on winning the championship. But you got Trubisky, you got Nick Foles. You need a quarterback. Those guys are not going to lead you anywhere. Even the legend himself, Jay Cutler, can't save the day.
God damn it, please.
You might
that's the Boston fan in you.
We got to get to Nico's pick. We got to get to Nico's pick.
I agree.
Holy cow.
Cede our time to the man that hasn't made a pick.
Christ.
I could go all day on this, and I'm going to have an episode on how their off season's kind of screwed too. But Nico, please, dear God, give your pick.
Saints big.
Thank you, Jim, by the way.
I'll be the one to fucking give the Bears a little bit of credit, because if we do remember, the Saints won in overtime against the Bears not too long ago, and that
But
was
I talked
with.
about that too.
I know you talked about that
But
too.
the
Hold
teams
on,
have
let me
changed.
finish my statement before everyone else fucking goes off. The Bears, they have Mitch Trubisky at quarterback now. I think it's going to be an okay game. I don't think it's going to be an ass whooping. I think Matt Nagy is playing for his job. I think the Saints only win by 10 and not 30. So I'm going Saints here big. But like the Bears, like so I remember specifically talking about this game, the overtime game, Saints Bears game on our show, and I said for some reason I feel like the Bears are going to win that game. I knew it was going to be a good game. Everyone was saying the Bears are going to get their ass kicked. For some reason, I thought that it was going to be a good game. The Bears might pull it out of their ass. Well, I think there's going to be a good game here. I don't think it's going to be ass kicking. I think for some reason the Bears decide that they show up. I think Khalil Mack is Khalil Mack. You could say what you want about Matt Nagy. Khalil Mack is going to show up on Sunday, whether the team is good or not. Khalil Mack will be an X factor in this game. And Drew Brees, you get a couple hits on him. I mean, you could make it a closer game. I'm not saying the Bears are going to win, but I think they could make it a closer game than everyone is expecting. But give me Saints here because I'm not an idiot. But the Bears are going to make it a good game. But like they need to move on from Matt Nagy. Just their best players are going to show up. Khalil Mack will show up. Eddie Jackson will show up. They'll have the right people show up. They just won't be able to slow down the Saints, and they won't be able to put up points. Thank you for letting my point get out.
At some point, they have to have some sort of redemption for double doink. Go ahead, Zach.
No, I was seeing my time. I was going to say something else. I've said enough. I need to stop. The venting can only go on for so long.
We're gonna have.
I would have been in the same position had the Cowboys. Don't worry, Zach.
We're gonna have plenty of time to talk about off-season stuff once we get to that point. We got one more.
All of our teams here, I mean, except Zach's, who are basically there, are in the off-season mode. I'm sorry, I'll keep saying that, but we're all basically in off-season mode.
Last game of the weekend, a Sunday night game, Browns and Steelers. We mentioned the COVID outbreak that happened with the Browns, even though the NFL refuses to call it an outbreak. It's been for 3 weeks now, and they still have issues. But let's go around the panel here. I'll start, Nico, since you barely got to speak in the last one. I'll start with you for the Browns and Steelers. Who do you got in this one?
Let's see how long this lasts before I get cut off. I'm gonna go Browns here, because I did not like what the Steelers did, and I did not like. I do not trust Big Ben right now. If James Conner can somehow get going, or if Pittsburgh if their defense decides to show up, then they're going to win the game. But that's if they decide to show up. I think the Steelers are looking at this game like it's a bye week. I think they're overlooking the Browns. I think they could care less. We almost beat you with backups. I think the Steelers are coming into this game. We're going to kick the shit out of you. I think the Browns surprise some people. I always say the little brother stigma, but I think the Browns finally get over the hump and win this game because, like I said on yesterday's show, on the Saturday show, the Browns, this is an unsuccessful season if they aren't able to get past the Steelers. And I think it is a successful season because Baker has played very well. And you have two of the best running backs in the game, the best 1-2 punch in Kareem Hunt, Nick Chubb. So give me the Browns here. But I'm saying this is also going to be a game winner field goal. I think at the end of the game, the Browns are going to have the ball last just barely. They're going to win the game in Pittsburgh, which is going to be, oh man, Jimmy, that'll make you very happy if the Steelers lose a home game to the Browns in the playoffs.
Oh, it would, but I'll put one flaw in your plan for the game-winning field goal. Cody Parkey is the Browns kicker.
Redeem season. It's redemption season.
Oh,
it's redemption season. 2021 is
Kelsey,
different.
Kelsey, what do you got for this one?
Before I get there, don't forget, Cody Parkey did set the record for most points as a rookie kicker in the history of the league. So he can kick a field goal, just not for the Bears. Sorry, Zach. But
Zach's hair will be lost by the end of the show.
Yeah, he's completely razzled. I feel bad for Zach because I would have been in the exact same position if the Cowboys was there. So I feel his pain. But I'm going to start with DJ's pick. He picks the Steelers only because of the COVID issues that the NFL refuses to acknowledge. If Stefanski was on the sideline, he thinks the Browns would win. And also on top of that, the rest, it does help Pittsburgh at the end of the day. But for my pick, I am going the opposite way because I can't continue to literally pick everything DJ picks because it's so frustrating to have to hear from him if I do. So give me the Browns because, you know, Nico hit the nail on the head. You have the two of the best running backs in the game. You have the best 1-2 punch. You still have Baker. You still have Jarvis.
You have an all-pro right tackle in Conklin. He was first-team all-pro this year.
Yeah. You know, Conklin is an all-pro, and that's actually kind of shocking, to be honest. I didn't really think he would make an all-pro nom. And unfortunately, the only guy, to me, this sucks for the Browns because you want to talk about a guy to rally around, Joel Bitonio. Unfortunately, stuck through all these terrible years in Cleveland and can't play. And you want to talk about a team rallying around a guy giving a reason to fight a little harder? I think that's a great reason. Your leader on your team isn't able to play because of this. Don't be surprised if they do things because their offense is simple at this point. Play action passes for Baker. Let Jarvis randomly throw up a random 60-yard bomb because he's QB1. And, you know, let Nick Chubb and let Kareem Hunt absolutely dominate this game and you'll be fine. Plus, I still refuse to pick the Steelers because, well, Raplesburger.
Thank you. I didn't have to make the joke this week.
I didn't get to make it last week, so I have to make it this week.
I appreciate it. Jim, I'm going to you next. Sunday Night Football, what do you see happening in this matchup?
I'm not going to rant long this time. I'm not going to do it. I'm just not. I've done it for the last 2 episodes. I've talked about the Browns earlier in the show. You know my opinion about the Browns. The Browns are going to play for their head coach. They're going to play above their ass in this game. It's the hump that they need to get over. They don't get over the hump. Raplesburger does win the game, but the Steelers will not get past the next round.
No, if they don't lose this round, they'll lose next round. I agree with that. Zach, since it looks like the show is bad for your health at this point, let's go ahead and get your pick so we can send everybody home for the rest of the games on Sunday.
Oh, you guys think it's funny? You just keep prodding, pushing the buttons. I am becoming the embodiment of the name that this network has. I am going unhinged mode right now. Here's the deal: Browns Steelers. Okay, here we got it. The Browns and the Steelers. Here's the deal. The Browns with Baker Mayfield are going to have a bit of an edge, okay? Baker is really good when it comes to criticism. He always likes to respond to criticism. That's kind of his bread and butter, it seems. And I'm going to say that some of the media response to what was, I would say, a piss poor win when it comes to a 2-point conversion that gone awry, as I have mentioned, might rub off. And I think you're going to lean heavily, of course, on Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb, who have been fantastic this season. But Baker Mayfield will be the star. I think he takes his game an extra step in this one. I also will have to say that Mike Tomlin coached teams when it comes to resting players don't exactly have a great history now. I don't like the fact that they rest because it seems like Tomlin doesn't learn from his own mistakes. It doesn't seem like these guys get ready to play after their stars are given some time off. So for that, I'm taking the Browns. And that concludes my picks. Stop harassing me.
This is a far drop off from Jumpman to now we're at Zach pulling his hair out. Zach was making nice jokes about Drake and Jumpman, and now he's pulling his hair out.
Do you see what you've done to this man, Jim?
Hey, we've come full circle. We saw the highs. We saw the highs, and now we're seeing the lows.
Can we get this Zach for a possible Joker role? We talked about it on the
I'm gonna
film
tell you
show.
right now. We need the picture of Zach going like this for a thumbnail, because that should be our thumbnail for the week. Zach going like this.
I don't disagree with that. But with
reaction
that,
to what Bears look like when they make the playoffs.
Oh boy,
beautiful, absolutely beautiful.
Well,
oh my gosh. All right, well, thank you guys for listening to NFL Unhinged. You'll hear the plugs that we recorded earlier, and we'll see you guys next week for the divisional round of the playoffs.